Good evening, everybody. I I have no excuse for the lateness, um, but I've at least had dinner. Let me just sorry, readjust the mic stand. So yeah, I know it's been very spotty in terms of the timing. So partly, this is partly due to the like just being sick. I still have a little bit of a cough, but like nothing too significant. Um, and then basically just the usual routine. It's hard to believe we're already at the third Wednesday, but there you have it. I should probably catch up on some of the things I wanted to do for January at this point. But as far as I can tell, sorry, as far as I can tell, there shouldn't be any more interruptions to the streams until I think it would be the 19th of February. I think we should be back to a regular Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm going to do my best to try and get started around 7 o'clock. But I mean, the drawback here is that it is the start time. That's the one sort of variable that can kind of work for me. What I mean by that basically is that, I have work. I like the work that I do. But it does sometimes make it hard to get home on time. And I had a little bit of improvement, and then it kind of came back. And I think probably, I don't know. I'll try and make it work, but I think the one thing is that the sort of variable start time is the thing. It's basically the difference between me doing a stream at all on that day and just saying, okay, you know what, I'm gonna sorry, I'm just going through my list here. But yeah, it's the difference between sort of, okay, I'm starting late versus I can't stream at all. So, but let's do our best with the time that we have. And it's Friday, so I don't, the only thing I need to worry about is not staying up too late over the full weekend so that I can have a proper start on Monday morning. I hope you are all well, though. So, actually, I'm already halfway done my tea. I might take the break early just so I can get some more. We have been focusing on the determinations. Now, we're not doing a standard playthrough in the sense that I get a Numa and present the journal at the Earl's U. That feels like that would be quite a disappointment. I am running on a sort of an altered file where I changed basically I went into the save and I changed the behind the scenes. Now this may not be the same as what other people see. So there's more than one Connie here. So I think there's actually probably a couple of hints or surprises or spoilers contained inside of these. But, I already found the Connie thing, so that's not as big of a deal. But lately I have been focusing on the determinations. So I have sort of two main tasks. One is to kind of commit one, I want to read the remaining books, and I want to try and level up the different skills that I get from them. I do eventually want to kind of clean up the library with all of these sort of extra books that are hanging around. But yeah, I've got 4 remaining books. I want to properly shelve these. And then I have a handful of determinations that I can make. It would be kind of nice for me to see what histories I can potentially make. I figure it would be good to play as if I was going to be going for one of the standard rather than the Lighthouse Institute endings. But we are going to be aiming for the Lighthouse Institute endings. And that's going to be something that I get in, I believe, tomorrow. So we've started with the speech determination. I think, let me just see what we've got here. All right. So I don't think I know. Yeah, I'm gonna I'm going to need to bring this back another time. Okay. Just taking a look at the Newman that I can bring in. I think I have a plan. But yeah, so some of this is going to be, I'm going to have to make certain inks. Some of this will be having to, some of these I will just wait and read the books. What I may do if we're just stuck at a point where I'm trying to make, or trying to get certain people to show up to the Lighthouse Institute, I don't mind sort of fast-forwarding the game a little bit more than I do. But my experience has been whenever I want to try and do that, I find other things that I want to do in the game. So I'm not expecting too much in terms of more speedy play. Plus, there's also the the fun of rereading the books and trying to work out some of the details, because I am still finding new things as I play. I can't remember if I'm sleeping on a memory or not. No memory to sleep on. So let's work out the plan for tomorrow. I don't think I have a to-do list. Yeah, it's empty right now. I believe I should already have... Oh, this is interesting. I thought I had a salon plan, but I don't. So I can try and maybe make some things for the salon as well. Memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. Okay, so I'm going to want to read a book. I'm going to want to make a determination in my journal. So I'm trying to think if there's anything... Oh, right, here. So here's the first thing that I can do. For an ink, I think I want another porphyrin. Yeah. I'm trying to remember which one of these gives me the... Inks of Power definitely does. Well, there's a new one. So now let's see if I remember how to do the Ichor Auroral. Not that one. Excuse me. All right, that works. I just need more sky. So am I willing to give up the plus Faust for that? I think so. Oh, Jamie, sorry. I didn't see your message. Jamie51DB, how are you doing? All right, so we're making the Ichor Auroral. This is just replacement for, excuse me, what we gave up for the porphyrin. I figure we might as well get out ahead of that. Um, all right. Now, what I maybe should have done was seen what I can do. Oh, yeah, actually, let's also get... I'm going to... This is purely for my curiosity. But I'm going to read... That's got to be Vac, yeah. I'm going to reread these just so I can properly shelve them. And then I am going to want to see if I can read the Sevenfold Slaying. If I have to read another... if I have to read another one to get a memory, so be it, but... okay. So, Sevenfold Slaying of the Seven Coiled, an account of the destruction of the primeval hour, of a primeval hour, a god who was stone. So, let's throw the medal at that for a start. Oh, well that needs to be seen, so I've already used that up, as does Voyage's Furnishing of Oriel. So, we're now on to the Carmine Petal. Now, my forge is actually kind of short. I don't see a situation in which I can get 18. Yeah, so I can pull out 12 with my extra metal. Alright, yeah, I sort of... I made a problem for myself. Let's go back to Sevenfold Slaying of the Seven Coiled, because it'll only take me a minute to get the the Fusine back. And can I realistically expect to read this with what I currently have? 16. Alright. So... I was going to read a different text with a Newman, but I think probably A Child's Treasury of Golden Afternoons would be the best. Let me just double check. I'm pretty sure A Merciless Alteration has edge. It does indeed. So yeah, let's get the Newman for the text first, and then we can... we'll basically acquire our new book for the... Actually, I should also treat this like it's the last day of the season. So here's the plan. Excuse me. These I'm just doing... I'm just investigating where I can shelve them. We're reading this to read the Sevenfold Slaying of the Seven Coiled. So the Disciplines of the Scar are going to be the main focus, just in terms of leveling up the things that I need. I do still want to get my determination in. Okay. I can do that at the end of the day, though. So I think the real question here is going to be, with my Disciplines of the Scar, what do I want to do with the Lantern and Edge? Because I'm going to have 3 of those. Yeah, so it looks like Auroral Contemplations, Ragged Crossroads, and Miniscate Reflection. It feels... Actually, no, that can't be right, so it's got to be Sharps. Sharps, Auroral Contemplations, and Ragged Crossroads. Sorry, I'm just taking a note. Okay. So, and that's of course assuming that I get 3 lessons, which I think is fairly likely. So that's going to be 5, 6, and 6. So that's a total of 17 memories that I need to generate. I could try and bring in someone like Mr. Kill, but I don't think that's necessary. And then I guess the last step would be maybe to try and make some things for the Salon, but I'm actually not that worried about letting that wait. We do have a whole season ahead of us, and we don't have that many books, so it's not that hard for us to sort of host it later in the day. So okay, so for Sharps, Auroral Contemplations, and Ragged Crossroads. So I'm looking for basically Edge, Moon, Lantern, and Winter. That's just based on what Disciplines of the Scar is going to get me. And in this case, I think I'll just kind of systematically go through the library, kind of picking up whatever I can find. So this is Knock and Rose. This, on the other hand, will get me... Nope, that needs to be seen, so... So that gets me Moon. This gets me Lantern. Now this is a bit scattershot, so I may find that I can't actually... I can't actually level anything up off of this this combination, but I'm not too worried about that. Actually, one thing I can do here. So let's use the Faust. I believe I can use, yeah, Color and Liver, so that'll get me a Lantern. I don't think any of the audio I have will help. What I should have done actually with the Stolen Secret would be to read the Velletri interviews. So these will get me a Confounding Parable. Those unfortunately don't apply. Or actually no, they'll give me some Moon, so we're good there. I suppose actually the Fear will help as well. Okay, so let's get those added into the mix. The VAC. Already spoken for. So I'm stuck on the audio, but that's fine. We still have more than I started with. And I think we can use an Arab this time around. Or actually, we've got more than enough Shaft. Okay. So I guess this is my new Confounding Parable. I've already got the Revelation. The patterns don't apply in this case. Foresight will help, though. I also forget where we were. I think I'm going to do the Chandler's Wish. And I believe this is our last one for now. We'll use another Shaft just because I've got more of it. And it'd be weird not to use contradictions in this case, so I'll make an exception. Read this one. Let's give Honey a comprehensive guide. It's due. I suppose another thing that I can do to help myself out would be we go to the Practic Garden dummy. Doesn't really matter which one I use here. I just need Torg's Cleansing. And for Edge, Moon, Lantern, and Winter, I'm already getting my bittersweet certainty. Zarog, good to see you. How you doing tonight? Okay. There may be a couple of others that I can pull out of the the readings, but I think I'm reasonably happy with what we've got here. We'll keep earning a bit of money, and we'll see what the day brings. I do have the option, if I want, of using sort of the heart, the Arab. I could be cooking a bunch of stuff right now, but I'd prefer to make sure that this reading priority is handled first. The other thing is I could be doing a little bit more with the gardens, I feel. But the thing is, I would kind of like to get to a point... Oh, actually, here's something I can do. We can start cleaning up. Renounce. If I cast an object into the sea, it will be lost, perhaps irretrievably. Something is given to the sea, it rarely returns, although of course I did. So the sunny day and the loss both also line up with my my plans for the day, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. Let's see what... So these first two are just so that I can... Okay, so... Alright, so this gives me a pattern, which isn't directly helpful, but... I at least know where to shelve this now. I'm going to skip reading it just because I don't need the contents right now, but I will read that again when the time comes. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal and a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. It is spring, and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie, with the pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. So unfortunately, I'm pretty sure Origins of the Hours gives me a confounding parable. Which, of course, because I read the one book, would mean I've already overwritten it. I guess the question is, how confident do I feel in that assessment? Sorry, just one second here. I really want my tea. All gone. I think I'm willing to give this a... excuse me. I think I'm willing to say more likely than not. Although this does create a small dilemma, because I imagine... Well, here's what we're going to do. Let's put this on... I'll put this back on the shelf. If I have space for it, I'll add it. If not, I guess I'm going to have to come up with another extended shelf. Colors in the Liver, Ilse Bischoff's most controversial film, banned for outbreaks of cannibalistic killings in Tiflis and Leipzig. A gang of heretic priests agrees to strike the fear of the change into the infuriatingly atheist citizenry. At night, they dressed as four-winged angels and crawled down chimneys and through windows to savage members of their congregation. The priests are caught by unidentified figures wearing heavily mandibled masks like grotesque caricatures of ants. They are force-fed larvae. A final caption indicates that at dawn the larvae will hatch. A child's treasury of golden afternoons. Once upon a time, a very bad man encoded very bad secrets into a charming illustration, the charming illustrations of a book of charming stories. Wake the pictures and you will see. Lord Jacob Gristwood, surgeon, ethnologist, philanthropist. There is no proof that he ever kept children in hutches beneath his bed. There's no proof he vivisected cats at dinner with his penknife. The Suppression Bureau keeps its secrets. Here's your paint, whispered the wolf to the pale girl. Here is your knife for scraping, and here is your face. All right, Torg's cleansing. The cleansing has left my skin burning, my teeth throbbing. The chorovality rumbles beneath the membranous surface of the waking world. Glimmerings, an anonymous prison diary written by a dreamer convicted of oniric irresponsibility and confined to the cucurbit. The prisoner is plainly terrified and bewildered by their situation and has been unable to wrangle a coherent explanation out of anyone, but the dreams keep coming and they keep writing them down. Gonna have to put a blanket over the stream or something to keep Zarog at bay. Snow, broken mirrors, half-heard sky music, flowers of white, red, and black, a blood-streaked winter dawn, the most notorious signifiers of oniric risk, fantastically vivid and detailed. No wonder they were locked up. Their final recorded dream is of a worm jewel beneath Brandkrug Isle, which they open with a key carved from their finger bone. The Serenity of the Black Wood, an allegorical history of the House of Leith, which it is here implied was inspired by the centipede. Serrano Blackwood is an occult alias to this day. The proverbial footloose gathers travelers in a wood and leads them through, but abandons them part way. They find themselves beset by glorious monsters. The travelers discover that they can survive if they close their eyes. They adopt a closed eye as their sign, and that they can go unnoticed if they drink from the clear, cold streams. They never forget that proverbial footloose, the centipede, but they never forgive her either. On Matthias and the Amethyst Imago, Loss, an account of an occult romance, a certain Para, son of Aaron, claims to have written this in a single night as part of his initiation into the Damascene branch of the House of Leith, that order of immortals who rejected their past and future. The laws of the house forbade Matthias to love, the customs of the wood forbade the Imago to remain, so he conjured her a final time, and when she had uncovered the shears of Alcapura, and she suffered him to cut the wings from her back so that she might remain, and he suffered her to cut the parts which hold man's seed, to keep them from the detestable act. This was love in all its blood and joy. We have cast Matthias from the house. In the cradle of the roots, Matthias and the Imago left their names, and though their names were lost, they found their name-day riddles. This we recall in solution and separation, so that in the presence of the moth our memories may become our futures. Do this wisely, in memory of the name and the long who gave up their past, that they might be together forgotten. The Chandler's Wish, formula and instructions invoking moth, lantern, and exceptionally, paradoxically, the liminal and theoretical hour called the Chandler. The author is anonymous, admitting only that they are the one who is not yet nameless. That they are one who is not yet nameless. The author makes a passionate argument that the hour named Chandler is in fact the oldest, even though he does not exist, because he is supposedly the culminating event of a plan that precedes Avongrail and Moth. Where the Chandler has passed, the understandings of the Colonel and the Lionsmith will wrench open truth. Where the Chandler will pass, Moth will pass before him. You know, it occurred to me I may not have made an oldest determination yet. Just give me a second here. Honey, the Comprehensive Guide. Harvey Haddington, pilot, polymath, confectioner, writes with great enthusiasm about the marvelous work of the bee. Haddington insists that all the primary aspects, nectar, scale, heart, lantern, moth, grail, are possessed by bees and expressed in honey. Clearly, he points out, there are only 6 primary aspects, as a honeycomb has only 6 angles. Ugal ink is prepared with these techniques, so is Skinshuck mead, and only Skinshuck requires honey. Just as any beverage or foodstuff can be improved with the addition of honey, so any garden is improved with the presence of bees, even those bloody blumberendi. I guess I never did actually read the paper again, did I? I'll get on top of that. Recordings from the Altheban Abyss. Recordings from a subterranean space in the mountains near Baghdad of conversations between the entomologist Juliana Zautzowski and an unidentified presence. Only Zautzowski's part of the conversation is comprehensible to the listener. The other side consists of grating, buzzing, and rumbling sounds, perhaps only rock movements or artifacts of the recording process, which Zautzowski nevertheless unhesitatingly translates. Zautzowski seems to believe that the presence identifies itself as a name or remnant of the lost hour called Seven Coils. It pleads with her to assist its rebirth. It begs her to find something for it in the city of Emesa. Towards the end of the interview, Zautzowski grows suspicious and repeatedly accuses the presence of being not the Seven Coils at all, only an inhabitant. The recording ends mid-sentence. Okay. Yeah, you should have set aside. All right, so... okay, so first things first, let's get the paper read again. So this one, just whatever I have the most of. I don't think we're going to use FET that much. Next up, whatever remaining books I haven't brought in yet. So... I don't know why, but I didn't bother with Hindsight, which obviously has the benefit of winter. And maybe I just didn't get around to it. So satisfaction doesn't help me out right now, but regrets will. I'm trying to remember which one we were on. Actually, we did Codex Acephali, so I'm going to skip over the Ivory Book, though, because we've got a few scenes going to be in demand. So I guess Lady Ava's Repose again. Doesn't look like we have much space for the Confounding Parable. Okay. Now, I did neglect a fairly important one. I'm going to get that done right now. So I'll try with the base metal, but I may need to go higher. I think this is as good as I'm going to get. Yeah. Alright, Edge of Conquest. I can master this mystery, enough edge to match mystery edge. Okay, so I've got my Foresight. The Solace doesn't help. Surprisingly, I don't have Intuitions yet. I think we were on to the 3 and the 3 Vatican manuscript. On top of that, I should get Salt. I think that might be it because we already have Fear. Earth Signs doesn't help. Storms doesn't help. I don't need Scale. Impulses are just Moth and Nectar. I already jumped the queue and got the Contradictions. And Gossip is Rose and Grail. So I think now is the time for me to spread these out. So this is Moon, Lantern, Edge. I'm obviously skipping Winter here, but... Okay, so it looks like we're most far ahead with Auroral Contemplations, but we'll see where everything lands. I do have space for another Newman, so I'm going to take it. Last of the Arab, though. Alright, so this one was going to be Weaving the World. So that's going to be to make my determination. And I'm just trying to think if there's anything I want to do at Collar's desk right now. I can't really see it. Like, I'd obviously like to add more, but I think if our goal is to get sort of Winter Edge and Moon, I've kind of exhausted it. So I'm going to just let it stay free, I think. Is this my favorite game? I mean, it's definitely the one I've been playing for a really, really long time. I mean, it's very hard for me to detach myself from Civilization. I mean, so one thing I'll say for this game, like, one of the drawbacks about the favorite is a favorite usually implies only one, and it's sort of like if I'm wearing the shirt that I am right now, I never want that to translate into sort of a thought that I like it to the exclusion of the others, right? It's not like I hate every other shirt in my drawers. I definitely like this game a lot. I think this is one of the most unique games that I've played, and it's one that continues to reward ongoing play. So it's definitely among, I'll say it for sure, it's among my favorites. But it's actually kind of funny that you asked this question, just simply because obviously I don't play a lot of Civ on stream. And this is actually one of the really big drawbacks about streaming, is that my feeling at least is you often can't play the games that are your favorite, because sometimes streaming it can actually ruin it. It can be, it can diminish the experience a little bit. And I think in the case of Civ, one of the drawbacks is because it's such a popular game and there are entire communities dedicated to working out the best strategies, it can sometimes be a bit of a shame. Like, there's obviously going to be two groups of people who want very different things out of it. You know, in my case, I'll enjoy the journey, and you know, I have enough of a competitive streak that I want to do well in it. But I also know that, like, I usually don't go out and consult other resources to learn how to get better at the game. I like to discover that myself. And so as a consequence, one of the things that's funny is the stuff that I will play on my own time often is not the same as what I'll play on the stream. Although, you know, obviously I wouldn't play stuff that I don't enjoy. But to answer your question, like, this would definitely be up there on my list of favorite games. It's hard for me to not mention Civ. But this is really something quite special. I've been kind of conscious. I do sort of see the numbers on the stream, and I know they've been declining for a while. And I do think the heavy like Book of Hours, I think is playing into that. I think not necessarily everybody wants to see that, and I know a lot of people sort of signed up for some of the strategy stuff that I did, and I will be getting back to that. But I am enjoying this, and I do at the very least want to see where the Lighthouse Institute goes. So hopefully that answers it for you, though. A second glory. The Prince Jusei celebrates the extirpation of the gods who were stoned, the gods who those hours who preceded humanity. Jusei engages in an apologia for the destruction of the hours. They were old, they were cowardly, they were vile, their time had passed, and it was the shining destiny of humankind to seize the house through glorious battle. Jusei recounts how the hour called Seven Coils was slain in battle by the Colonel, how the Grail devoured the hour called Tide, and how the egg unhatching fled like a coward. He is quite vituperative about the egg unhatching. He warns darkly against its return. So this is actually the first kind of exclusive winter, although we'll be getting a few more of those. Lady Ava's Repose, a meditation on the drowning of Lady Ava de Wolf and her two grandchildren, written in the years when the estate was abandoned by Father Theo, once the de Wolf family chaplain, one of the few to remain on the isle in those desolate years. There are so many stories of her heritage, so many rumors of her persistence, we might easily choose to believe that the grand twins escaped, even that they live yet beyond the sea. Father Theo has come to believe that Ava sought an escape from a family curse, the pale heritage of Haffren, her forebear, or the curse placed upon her line by the cunning man Red William in the time of Hendrik de Wolf. He had begun by believing neither curse was real, but as the book concludes, he decides that he is determined to believe in them, rather than accept the three deaths as a futile tragedy. One does not so easily escape the long necessity of faith, he concludes. No, it's a good one. This is the thing for me, Jamie. Like, some people don't like the discursive style, and some people kind of like hearing it. So I tend to find, and this is, I think, this is true when I was doing more teaching. I'm doing a little bit of teaching at work, more so on an ad hoc basis, but I still really like it. I always tend to find that with questions, there's the direct question being asked, and then there's sometimes what's sort of lying underneath it. I often tend to find that they do provoke interesting trains of thought. I am actually kind of curious. This is always a fun one. I don't want to, again, I don't want this to be artificial audience engagement if people don't want to go on with it. But would actually be interested in hearing some people's favorite games in chat if anybody wants to share. But the other thing I will say for this was there's a right. So it's kind of funny that I do this. I've often tried to find a writers group wherever I am. Often, actually, it's not just writing, but like usually a few groups. So when I left Vancouver, I had just started to get involved in the local indie dev community. So there's a meetup called Full Indie that I was somewhat regularly attending just around the time that I was leaving. Disco Elysium? Oh, I've played the opening little bit. I actually did that for my birthday stream. Disco Elysium is fantastic, and I'm sure you know about Game 3 coming in, which is not... I think the better way to say inspired by Disco... Actually, I think it's the developer of this game is the one who first made me aware of Disco Elysium when it was like a demo that a lot of people were excited about after Gamescom. But yeah, no, Disco Elysium is great. The only thing that's tricky for me is that the final cut, I do have to change the voiceover settings because they have such great voices for it. But obviously for me as a streamer, one of the things I like is actually being able to read the text. Now, I'm not going to be able to hold a candle to, the voices that they do for the inner voices, but, I have to... I got to do it, right? Like that's my chance to sort of put my stamp on the playthrough. But yeah, no, I think you must be interested in the third game. Well, assuming you know of Traveling at Night, but I'm guessing you are. And yeah, they definitely said. Well, it's kind of. I mean, it's true, but again, it's I'm not trained, so I can't do it as well as the pros. But yeah, my one regret is that I know a streamer who I really like who covered Disco Elysium, Oswin Meow. You'll see her stop by the stream every once in a while. In fact, I'll just take a minute and do the shout out for her channel. So I made sure that I only saw it in fragments because I do want some surprises for myself still in that game. But the only thing I can say is that I'm in the like really attention-getting opening where it's all like sex, drugs, and disco, and it's funny, and that's great. But I actually also know that the game definitely goes to even better places, but it's not just all kind of clowny and like trying to skip out on the bill, and failing and like flipping the guy the bird with both hands as you go flying through the air. It does seem to take a shift in tone, and I've been really looking forward to seeing how they do that. Actually, in a certain way, it reminds me a little bit of how this game works, because you sort of think you're doing one thing, you kind of think you know what this game is about, and then you get a bit deeper in the house and you realize that there really was a fire, and then things like the DeWolf family, aren't just barons, but there does actually seem to be something a little more complicated going on with them. And there are some games that really do that turn very well. But yeah, Disco Elysium's good. In fact, for those of you that like CRPGs, there's probably 3 big ones that I've wanted to do. So Disco Elysium, Tyranny, and Rogue Trader. And then at some point I'd also really like to do Baldur's Gate 3 again, because I did it during the early access, but I actually haven't played it to completion yet. I don't even think I've gotten past the first act, come to think of it. But yeah, Disco Elysium's a good one. It's never edgy for the sake of it. I think the game is for the song. Yeah, no, I think that's actually I think that is a really good way of putting it, Jamie. Like, and just to be clear, like when I'm talking about those opening moments, what I'm really talking about is I think the game does a great job of putting some of its best material up front to really let you know that you're playing something special. So like I'm thinking, I remember that. So I was very interested to watch Prosciutto Fist play Disco because, you know, how can you not in this game, especially given like it's really interesting to start off with the hangover, right? To realize that your opening dialogue is a hangover, I thought was a fun reveal. And to just sort of have that tone established, um, and then you talk with Classy, and like how can you not try to use the expression, right? And inevitably, I mean, I think there's like 100 different streamer reactions from this. I want to make blank with you. That's just incredibly funny. And it does such a good job of letting you know that you are in a game quite unlike whatever else you've played before. But when I was watching Oswin play it, like that can also be really funny in a clowny way, right? Like the game I think would have done well and would have been a good game if it just stuck with that tone, right? Because like being funny is great. Like I wish there was more funny stuff, but I also appreciate that it's really hard to be funny. How do you tell like? And it's also funny too because I actually literally this week finally had a satire that I wrote at work critiqued by the group, and it was great because there was the spectrum of reaction from like the person who thought that it was completely serious to one where the person's a very good editor, but like nothing gets by them. But even that one, it was really clear, like, the notes kind of just go from like correcting things to just like underlines and like so true and haha, and like I essentially got to like live vicariously through that reading. So the funny thing is that I get that in a lot of cases. I mean, there's times that I just do dumb jokes, dad jokes for the sake of it. But like it does seem to be that there are cases where I could try to make people laugh and have a reasonably good estimate that they are going to laugh, which I guess kind of means that you're funny, right? Like if people laugh, obviously the thing was funny. But I've never really thought of myself as a funny person. And again, it's weird, right? Like actually, there's there's some TV show that Louis C.K. I think was the star. Maybe it was called Louis, actually, now that I think of it. But I'm thinking specifically David Lynch. Obviously sad news yesterday about his passing. But he plays a television executive, and like basically is like, okay, on 5, be funny, and it's really hard, right? So, anyways, the reason why I'm going on that is that like it's hard. Like whenever you say something like that, to me I sort of appreciate that it's almost an impossible instruction when I tell people like you should be funny more, right? This is the way to success. But it's important because there actually is less funny stuff than I think the demand has been met for. So to a certain extent, Disco Elysium, if it kept the same tone that it did at the start of the game, I think it would have been great and people really would have liked it. But I like that it went even further and that it wanted to tell an even more affecting story. And as you say, a game for the soft-hearted, like it really does actually seem to go further. And it's one reason why I like it, and I think it's something very special. It's why I really want to play it on stream at some point. I just also recognize that it's going to be a big time commitment like this one. So what I'll probably do is I'll have a little bit of a palate cleanser between Book of Hours and sort of my next big one. I have a few things that I'd sort of started in ye old days that I want to get back to, but Disco is definitely on the list. The three, and I also should say too, I'm largely reacting to the game that I saw from Oswin. So I also know that her playthrough is going to be a certain way. It's actually also interesting, too. I know a little bit of Oswin's educational background, and it's quite different from my own. So I'm also kind of interested in how I'll react and what choices I may wind up making for myself. Because it really does seem to be incredibly varied in terms of the experiences that you can have. The Three and the Three, Vatican manuscript, a church-authorized version of an older text. This book describes the chancel and the calyptra, two triads of hours with subtle, far-reaching powers and responsibilities. It has clearly been reworked to fit church doctrine. The deepest knowledge is forbidden to all mortals except those who seek it beneath the watchman's tree. It is calyptra that planted the tree, but it is the chancel, the cruciate, that has elected calyptra. Who then elected the cruciate? Or is this, as the saying goes, a matter of Janus? The sister and witch is cruciate, but the witch and sister is not. Even those powers that demand a conjunction are not always conjoined. When the sister is nowhere, does that mean nowhere sits in crucium? The Queen's Turn, a 16th century translation of the Barrowchild's account of Lagia's turn, when Lagia, the queen unsated, was offered the opportunity to enter the service of the Hours of the Triple Knot, as long as she repudiated her brother-lover Antaios. I'm going to switch this over, actually. Lagia accepts, setting aside the arts of the low red sun associated with Antaios. She bargains, however, for freedom for her daughters. The Hours of the Triple Knot accept casually, knowing that Lagia has devoured her daughters, but wily Lagia has decided in the secret hollow of her heart that she will adopt any who ask if they can prove their fierceness. The traditions described here, the ones generally described as hill and hollow, are associated with Lagia before her turn, but now that she is a name of the Red Grail, they might also be safely used before an altar of the Triple Knot. And finally, the Copperlinth Amphalos. What is this? A tufted fossil of silken fiber, big as a child. Something consumed, and something was consumed. If we interpret its interweavings, we might understand. The meaning of this object isn't something that one reads, but rather something that one follows, until at last one has passed 3 times around it, and one finds the meaning waiting at one's shoulder. Okay. So, time for a determination. Before I go any further, let's get that down. So, the reading room desk. The book wheel is a DeWolf heirloom, a gift to Ava DeWolf from her admirer, the adept Franklin Bancroft. The desk and lectern are much more recent. Steel plaques on both read to Gervinus Van Loren in gratitude for his assistance in the closing of the Winding Stair. E. Abney Hastings, Nocturnal Secretary, 1928. Now, unfortunately, my best moon is currently occupied. I think I can get by. Oh, I don't even need an element of the soul. That's good to remember. Make a determination. Black the first flower. The Watchman's Tree is the covenant that forbids knowledge to mortals, but permits it in the covenant houses of the tree, like Brankrug Isle. The black flower of Calyptra, the night unwounded, was its first defense. Forbidden knowledge must not be spoken, must not be written, must not be known. The tree is rooted in night. Now, if you can just give me a second here, I'm going to make a note on... okay. Yeah, so for some reason, I escaped choosing one of the oldest. I actually feel like I may be missing... Okay, so Winter and Lantern accounted for. Grail and Edge accounted for. Moth and rose accounted for. Heart, nectar, and scale. Heart, yes. Nectar, yes. Scale, yes. Metal is edge and forge, so we already said edge was accounted for. Oh, forge was the first one I looked at. Knock and forge, so yep. In fact, knock is the one that we apply, or sorry, it's one of the, it's speech that we applied, but I think we went for rose there. Moon we just did. Moth we said we had. And then Grail and Heart, which, again, these are ones we've already talked about. You know what? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to check the wiki on this, actually, because I'm trying to remember if there was a horned axe determination. Okay, so we've got 3 flowers. Oh, it is, but it's heart and knock. Okay, yeah, so this is why I didn't do the oldest, because none of them are relevant. So rose, sky, winter, and scale, and none of the oldest are technically relevant to my Now, that doesn't mean that I can't make a determination on that, but I think I'll have to have a think about this one. Okay. So I hate to say it, I think I'm going to bring back that old lost music, because I believe scale was the last one. So old lost music is rose, scale, and sky. Final understanding is rose, sky, and winter. I already know the winter one. So scale is the last unknown. I'm also running out of elements of the soul. Alright. So I'll read the turquoise hand one more time. Good news is it's Ramzan, so that one doesn't come up as often. I can also use it when leveling up my skills. I think the last thing here, I do need to prepare my elements of the soul to, like, make more memories. The real problem here is I did want to try and make some food for my guests, but a lot of that's just going to be waiting on finishing the... Oh, not this one. Please tell me I'm reading Sevenfold Slaying. That's got to be at the... Yes, okay, yeah, so we've got one more minute. Yeah, I think we just stay the course. I guess as an outside option, I can use some of these... I always kind of save these ones for the end just in case I mess something up, but these I can just as easily use to level up the skills as well. But I think at this point, we just need to wait on the... we just need to wait on the lessons. A little more doubtful that I'm going to get this done by the end of the season, but what I'm really trying to avoid here is getting hit by Numa, and as long as that, yeah, as long as we have a realistic path to committing the memories before the season comes, it doesn't really matter. Okay. The Turquoise Hand, a calligraphic manual of Ramsand, which employs as exemplar text Farid Uddin's Conference of the Birds. At noon, the sun moves like the beating of a wing. At sunset, he sends the herald child with her candle. At midnight, he sends the wind that extinguishes the candle flame. Commentary, illustrations, and interleavings carry revelations never intended in the original, a sense of history and the senses of histories. In the right histories, every song ever sung still lingers in wind and echo, untouched by the demands of eternity. I always liked this one. The sevenfold slaying of the seven coiled, an account of the destruction of a primeval hour who was a god who was stone. There are 12 verses, and the first, an ascendant hour identified as the scarred one, enumerates his justifications for destroying the seven coiled, its appetites, its growth, its enmity to humanity. In the second, a priestess puts out his eyes and scars his skin to protect him against the seven coiled's magics. In each of the next 7 verses, he destroys one aspect of the seven coiled. In the 10th verse, the scarred one bathes his priestess patron in the blood of the seven coiled to lend her power. In the 11th, they assault the temple behind the world, entering it by force. In the 12th, they swear a tripartite oath to protect their ancestors, their descendants, and themselves. I don't know, this is just the kind of big epic stuff that you, like, I've been going through my notes. So, in school, I had to, in the English courses, I went for sort of more Old English. So, I got the first 2 volumes, excuse me, first 2 volumes of the Norton Anthology of English Literature. So that would basically take you from Beowulf to Milton, basically. Although I think Volume B goes a bit further beyond Milton. But that's a wonderful compendium. So and the thing is, everybody uses it. So if you go on used bookstores, you can usually find them for a song. So especially if a new edition comes out. So I got that, but a friend of mine did sort of point out that world literature is its own thing, and very often, it's easy to miss some of the really great ones from that if your primary focus has been on English literature, which I think is a very fair point to make. So I have a couple of texts to try and get around that, but I eventually decided that the Norton world literature wouldn't be terrible, especially because it's got a whole bunch of ancient Greek stuff. There was actually also a Norton anthology for classical literature. Unfortunately, it doesn't have Lucian, which is one thing I'd really like to read more of. So, yeah, anyways, it definitely, this one reminds me of the types of sort of epics that you will read from those very, very early works. And I don't know, I think the kernel's kind of neat anyway. Okay, so we get fear out of that one, which obviously replaced the one that we had before, but what are we going to do, right? All right, we've got more fear than we know what to do with. So I'm going to make a new fear shelf. At some point I want to do a reshelving session, but I know that's going to take time, so I need to figure out the right moment. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. I am the librarian of Hush House, and I have made my determination. If you are considering a moon history, the origins roots determination is relevant, or if you're considering a scale history, origin shell is relevant. So, Black, the first flower of the Watchman's Tree, is the covenant that forbids knowledge to mortals, but permits it in the covenant houses of the tree, like Brankrug Isle. The black flower of Calyptra, the Knight Unwounded, is its first defense. Forbidden knowledge must not be spoken, must not be written, must not be known. The tree, is rooted in night. And speech the key. Language is the key. It was language that opened the doors of the Mansis. Without language, we would have had no peace. Without language, we would still be beasts, worms, mud. Now, let's see if I can find that last history. So I can write any history that I want, but the reason I want to focus on the 4 that I've been looking at are these are the ones that are unique to the magnate, which I'm playing as. And scale is the last one that I couldn't get a read on. All right. The second dawn, an old sun, red and low. So without the magnate, this history is my last and greatest work, and in it, that old red sun will return to a gentler, hungrier heaven. There was a gentler sun once. In this history, when the oldest hymn is raised, perhaps it will grace our sky with its peace. Interesting. I don't know why, but it's a realistic bookstore. I worked at it's Canada's big box book chain. It was okay. So there was a merger between 2 companies called Indigo and Chapters. I still call it Chapters, but I believe the company that was like the dominant one is Indigo. So I think it's appropriate. It's more appropriate to call it Indigo. But anyways, whichever you want to call it, I did work for them very briefly. But I've never had to do a big reshelving, for better or worse, I suppose. Yeah, it's funny. Like I've had varying methods for shelving, but I also think to a certain extent the shelves have been designed specifically to not deliberately be frustrating, but I also think that they have been built in such a way that you don't have it easy, I'll say, is kind of what I get from this. I think it's kind of been designed so that you're going to have to make some choices in terms of how you break up the bigger sets. Okay. Let's try and find a way through the disciplines of the scar. So again, this is an edge and a lantern one. Now my rule for doing this has been take the lowest level and level that up first, and then whatever remains, I kind of go for the top of that. So for instance, with the edge, I bring sharps up to 6, and then next I would have auroral contemplations and ragged crossroads. So I guess technically it makes the most sense for me to use sharps first. Although, actually, maybe that... No, I'm going to do auroral contemplations because I think it's actually better for me to get rid of the ones that can only be used for it. So we have auroral contemplations. So then I'll kind of show the reasoning that I have here. So Bittersweet Certainty, Foresight, Revelations, and Sunny. These are exclusive to auroral contemplations. The only way it's going to work. So I can use Loss, which is very easy for me to restore. But I can also use the Fear in this case. So those are the 2 edge. These are quite straightforward for me to replace. So we'll run with that. That's going to take 30 seconds. So the Fear that I try and get back is one thing. But I can then use sharps, which again is going to use all of my edge and stuff like that, but it requires fewer memories. So I think that's the way I'm going to be able to get this all done before the season's finished. Renounce. If I cast an object into the sea, it will be lost, perhaps irretrievably. Use this to dispose of junk or of danger. It always horrifies me, by the way, whenever I see people play this and they like throw books into the sea or the fire because they're afflicted. Like, you can't do that. It's wrong. Oh, you know what? There's one other thing that I want to look up on the wiki. Or not the wiki, the, it's the Rowanarium. I just need a minute to find it. What would be the best way? Nope. There we go. Okay. All right, couldn't find it, but I'll make do. Did I miss an opportunity to use... No, I don't think I did. Okay, so now's actually not a bad time for me to think about how the rest of the day is going to work. So I'm going to level up sharps. I'll move that in position now, actually. So the sharps just need 5, which I technically already have. I'm going to need 6 for Ragged Crossroads, so I've got my 3 winter. I'm going to need 2 more elements of the soul. So I've got the Whist here. I'll use the Arab here. Yeah, so 2 elements of the soul. Let's say we'll use the... Actually, I can use Shapt in both of these. Okay. So this is what I need to be able to get everything that I need leveled up. Everything from here are just sort of nice to haves. So for instance, I'm going to take my Faust and I am going to read the 2nd edition of Towards a Fundamental Aesthetic, because I'd like an idea of what the difference between my 2 Newman are. Okay. After that, I do want my focus to be on the Salon, which means I'm probably going to need to consult my recipe list, which for some reason I have insanely insisted on calling Book 2, and then I'm going to wonder why I'm so upset when I can't find the file. Okay, so the invitation was going to be Douglas, Aaron, Stanislav, Arthur, and Olympi. So that would mean Lantern and Moon, a Heart, Lantern, and a Moth, I believe. I'm just going to double check those. God, there's so much stuff I need to erase here. Okay, Madame Bichet, no, she takes Forge. But the rest of it seems to be right. Okay, so the lantern ones are always the toughest. So let's do an orange jumble and a stuffed golden marrow. I don't think we need to get too clever about this time, so we will take the core. Or actually, no, I've got plenty of health, so we'll start with health. So it should be sugar and almonds. I should have plenty of both, but I'm not seeing them on the shelves, which worries me. Well, I have a sugar, so we'll work with that. And then I need the spicing. All right, make an orange jumble. Now, I should already have a golden marrow. I'll make it just so I can sort of speed things along. But I do want to open the vegetables to make sure that I get a replacement. All right, bake a golden stuffed marrow. That's 2 taken care of. We can use lantern at the jail. All right, so I've got moon, heart, and lantern, so curious. I've got a pudding already. Fried mushrooms on toast would be kind of nice. But actually, I think I'm going to do either leek or onion soup. Let's do leek soup, because this is going to be for the moon. Which actually tells me I should be opening a sack of vegetables. Okay, so we'll leave the leek soup. I'll just make a note here. So for a main course, I think we might just do beef, but yeah, I don't think we need to go to get too clever about it. So the other thing that's nice about that is it will get me the dripping that I need for the leek soup. And then maybe a mushroom and potato bake? Oh, definitely lantern, Jamie. So I have 3 favorites. But lantern above all for sure. So lantern, knock, and edge would be sort of my top 3. And then out of the aspects that were specific to Book of Hours, I would definitely say that I connect most with Sky. So under the descriptions here, for those who are not immediately familiar with them, lantern. Life is a pure flame and we live by an invisible sun within us. Thomas Brown. Lantern is the principle of the secret place, sometimes called the house of the sun and of the light above it. Knock. Oh, I keep putting that in superlative terms. Knock. The principle called knock permits no seal and no isolation. It thrusts us gleefully out into the safety of ignorance. Knock opens doors and unseams barriers. Disciplines of the Scar would give us edge, so all conquest occurs at the edge. One who dwells there is blind and cannot be wounded. Another is strong and grows stronger. Edge is the principle of battle and of struggle. And then for Sky, we've got wind, storm, echo, song, the intricacies of mathematics, and the principles of flight. Law's touch is lighter than we sometimes think. Matters of balance, harmony, and necessity. And Jamie here says winter and moon. So we have quenchings and quellings. Winter is the principle of silence, of endings, and of those things which are not quite dead. And moon Secrets are soft, night is softer still. The sea speaks, it is not always wise to listen. The nocturnal, the forgotten. I feel like Winter and Moon would... Those are the Titanic aspects. You know, the North Atlantic waters. Those are good ones, though. But yeah, since the very beginning in Cultist Simulator, Lantern was always the one that I connected with the most. And I was always fond of Nock, and I grew to appreciate Edge, but I still very, very heavily relate to Lantern. Okay. I think I've got enough to get by. I could also print the invitations, but I don't think that's necessary. When something is given to the sea, it rarely returns, although of course I did. Yeah, no, I know full well my my stereotypes. And I would say too, like it does also kind of come across too in terms of some of the ways that I just think about some of the things inside of the secret history setting. Like, they're not necessarily the only way of interpreting them, but I do find that I gravitate towards certain sort of takes on the game that very much reflect the my particular set of interests. So a very good example of this, I don't really know if I would consider myself like a full-on Platonist, but it is a very natural... So I'm trying to think of the way to sort of explain this. Like, to a certain way, like, I don't know how true this is, but somebody once sort of said that you can sort of divide sort of two types of philosophers between like Plato and Aristotle, and I always tend to find that that sort of stuff is more said because it sort of sounds a little clever, and it's a nice sort of shorthand for a very complicated system, but it doesn't always sort of hold water when you really think about it. But I guess the thing is that there is, to at least a certain type of person, the ideas of Platonism are very attractive, and they just sort of seem to be, I can't really say right, but just a very, like, it's a way of thinking about the world that really helps and sort of holds, it just kind of makes things hold together quite well. And like, I'm fully aware that it's not the only way, but like you tend to find a lot of mathematicians sort of gravitating towards this sort of, and like, I don't even necessarily think they would call themselves Platonists. I just think that like, once you start thinking of the way that they sort of think about the world, you'll see it reflected there. And whether or not I would consider that to be a core belief, because I think if you forced me to make a decision, I'd probably say that I'm not. But in terms of just the natural way of thinking, I tend to gravitate towards that train of thought. Maybe that reflects the reading that I did, or maybe that just reflects sort of a natural inclination that I have. But what I do also think is true is that it's a type of thinking that very heavily influenced a lot of occult thinkers later. So, you know, you have Plato. You sort of have Plato's sort of immediate students. But a really important one would be Plotinus and Neoplatonism. So Neoplatonism is not Plotinus, you know, it's a series of thinkers. So his student and biographer Porphyry, Iamblichus, Proclus. We don't have any of her recorded writings, but Hypatia would be considered a Neoplatonist. And certainly a lot of medieval thinkers would probably count as Neoplatonists. So I'm thinking of someone like Hildegard von Bingen. Among others, of course. But it's also true that Neoplatonism had quite a heavy influence on a lot of occult thinking. And so I'm thinking of some people like Stephen McKenna, and I think William Butler Yeats was also influenced, I think may have even been influenced by Stephen McKenna. And so, you know, again, there is actually a difference between Neoplatonism and Platonism. It's important to, in fact, many ways, what sometimes when I refer to sort of a Platonic way of thinking, sometimes the influence of Platonism is such that it's actually Neoplatonism that we're talking about. But again, these are all tricky labels, and it's hard to get a excuse me, a solid read on some of this. Oh, you know what? I didn't need to make the roast beef joint. I've already got 2. Maybe I'll just put a second one in place for and save myself making the ham and potato bake. I don't know. I'll think about that later. But yeah, I think just to a certain extent, like, again, it's tricky for me to tell whether or not this is just me imposing a particular way of thinking on the game. I'm always kind of conscious of this, right? Because it does also come up, like, the best example I can think of this is advertising, right? Because we're at a point now where there is a lot of micro-targeted advertising. I actually find it kind of neat because I've disabled a lot of the targeting on my various devices. So it like basically thinks I'm like 50 or 60 years old. I'm finding a lot of like hearing aids and retirement benefits or whatever. And then, of course, like when I'm using like Google or something that has a good sort of profile on me, the stuff sort of fits a little bit better. But what I tend to find is that there is now a tendency for people to think that things that they quite like or have found has not been marketed. And that I find really interesting. I mean, it basically means the marketing's working. But obviously, it's very difficult to say, particularly if you're thinking of online advertising, to say that a creator, for instance, didn't advertise a particular product because you didn't see it. And it's like, well, unless you fit within those buckets that creator wants to reach, you wouldn't know if they had advertised or not, right? Like, I don't know who does or doesn't advertise on Reddit. That's actually true of a number of different sites and services. And in fact, for things that I already play, it's probably a good thing for those developers that I don't see their advertising because I've already got the sale, right? So like a perfect example would be if you could somehow connect Steam, like someone's Steam account to, their Google cookie or Meta or any of these things. Whatever, they're using for the advertising targeting. Like if you see that, like I don't think it works this specifically, but just as an example, if you see that person already has the game in their library, you would not want to advertise to them. The sale has already been made, and so you would be wasting that advertising money. What you want to be doing is you want to be sort of hitting someone who's sort of in your funnel. Ideally, you're hitting them with a certain type of target to sort of deepen the relationship rather than maybe make that first impression. So it's an example that I give, but it's just one of these things where I sometimes recognize that when you have a certain way of looking at the world and you have your own experience, you're sometimes going to be closed off to equally valid interpretations, possibly even more ones that are closer to what's actually going on. And that's just simply because you don't really have a frame of reference. So again, for me, I'm kind of conscious that when I say that I sort of think that this stuff does tend to have somewhat of a heavy influence from Platonism, I don't think that that's wrong, especially because so much of the source material very obviously is influenced by those ancient philosophies. But I do think it's also possibly for me to go too far with it, just simply because it is sort of a train of thought that comes very naturally to me. And so when other certain topics come up, or when other potential sources of influence come up, they're ones that I may be missing as a point of reference, just simply because I've gotten stuck in that rut, right? The kind of there's grooves in the pathway that I sort of naturally already fall into, which of course is why it's sometimes fun to discuss this stuff. Okay, I need to level up the sharps, so we'll do that now. At last, I'm something of an authority in this. Actually, you know what? I think I already had that Arab set aside. Okay, so I was going to use the two... shot. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so I need a fear for sure. Or actually, I think I'm already getting the fear. I think I might have messed up. Actually, I don't need any of this. Because we've got the hindsight, the regret, and the salt. So that's 3. We've got 4 here. This will get me 5. And this will get me 6. Cool. Alright, so the rest of it is cooking. I'm going to move the beef to the... You know, I did it before, but I'm going to use the Hall of Division again. And then I think at the end of the day in-game, I'm going to take a break so that I can get a refill on my tea. I've wanted it since fairly early into the stream, and we're at the halfway point now. So I know it's been a little bit of a quiet one, but I've definitely enjoyed chatting and catching up with everyone. The deeds of the scarred captain, painstakingly assembled by the soldier of fortune and sometimes remittance man Pavel Shulga during his years in Greece. An account of the founding of Mycenae by a scarred captain who first slew 7 monsters to make the land safe. As the captain destroys each monster, a flood of blood rises higher until at last a priestess drowns and is reborn as a serpent goddess. She blesses the captain, and he departs for the house above the forest, leaving Mycenae to reign supreme after the flood of blood subsides. And Towards a Fundamental Aesthetic, 2nd edition, or The Refinements of Light. Julian Cosley had never wanted or expected to write a 2nd edition of his masterwork. This book houses a Newman, a truth so powerful it can perhaps believe itself. Julian Cosley long regarded Solomon Husher as a charlatan, but his friend Nina Lagasse painted 3 paintings before her death in 1895, and these paintings apparently convinced Cosley to change his mind. With considerable irritation, he revised his magnum opus. The perfect hegemony of the hours is perhaps eternal. Cosley had always championed history rather than eternity, the exceptions, limitations, contradictions of freedom, but Husher's and Lagasse's work convinced him to believe in the paradox of the eternal ending, a means in which perfection might be reconciled with freedom. He's not happy about it. This is perhaps the angriest book ever written in support of a peaceful philosophy of acceptance, but Cosley was always scrupulous about his conclusions. Okay, Newman, A Final Understanding. Eternity and history cannot be reconciled. Freedom cannot be perfection, not unless we understand the paradox of the eternal ending, and only in certain histories is that paradox possible. Any librarian can use this to establish a history and complete the game, but the magnate can use it to win a particular victory. So, this is more for my curiosity here, but let's take a look. So I'll use the rows first, actually, just so I don't have to hop desks all the time. I think this is still my best rows. Nope, Path and Pilgrim. So the base for this, To Ye's Beyond the Wave. This history is my last and greatest work. Ye's Beyond the Wave will be the city of conclusions, where all the threads resolve. Or Magnate Victory, Ye's Beyond the Wave. Ye's Beyond the Wave will be the last city on Earth, and there I'll find my peace. So there will be no second dawn. Husher foresaw the long road to silence and the lights along the way. This history is my last and greatest work, and in it there will be no second dawn. And Magnate Victory, there need be no second dawn. All the colors of the world are enough. In that understanding, I will find my peace. And then if we switch out the Nillikant and the Whist, and we instead replace... Oh yeah, I used the Fost before, so this might... In fact, it's likely not going to work. Sacre bleu! Oh wait, hang on. Yeah, it's still not going to work, though. One short. Alright, the orange jumble. Let's lay everything out. Stuffed golden marrow. This marrow was accounted a beauty among its kind. Now it's a dish for those who understand fidelity. Alright, let's see what we can get done in the last little bit. Oops, sorry. So I need to get the leaks. Actually, okay, sorry. First thing I need to do is level up the skill. When I thought I'd understood, I'd only begun. Okay, so Douglas, Arthur, Olympi, Schaller. Okay, it really is the leaks that are the last that I need. Okay, that's fine. Let's think about drinks then. So for the Lantern Crew, I normally have Cater and Hero Second Flesh Assam, although I don't know if I've brewed any that's available. I'm also noticing I don't have any on the shelf here, so what gives? I almost certainly would have bought some if I was short. This makes me think I might have it, but I didn't realize I had onions. Maybe I should have made the onion soup. I'll confess, I'm going to be a little annoyed with myself if I neglected to get well. So the coffee would also be an option, but I don't think I have coffee either. It's funny I didn't get a replacement for the tea, though. I want to make sure I do an order before the end of the day. Okay, so I'll order 2 packets of Dawn Lion, 2, maybe 3 of the Assam. Moon and Heart are pretty easy to do. And a Forge, I think we can get by with... Well, there's one of 2. Either the Honey Scar Jasmine or the... the Veiled Goddess. Okay, let's get that order in. Okay, pour it out. Again, I don't exactly need to rush this, but it's just nice to have it out of the way. Scratch tiny symbols on the flimsy form. Okay, so food and drink, food and drink, food and drink, food and drink, and we just need the leek soup, which I'll get in 30 seconds. Admittedly, it's kind of dumb for me to do this, but I am going to draw out more water. And I think the Dawn Lion I get from TRN. I'll just double check, but yeah, so dripping flour, milk, potatoes, butter, sugar, lapsang Assam, umbrus oil, ocelot oil, scintillate oil. Oh, nope, there's the Dawn Lion. Okay, so we'll do 2 or 3. Ah, we can do 3. Alright, to understand why 4 paths were not taken. So we're in good shape. We should have, yeah, 3 and 3. Provide money equal to the cost. The postmistress will make out a postal order. So I think we're stuck with a 10 shilling note. Post a completed cater and hero order form. And then we will take one of the sacks of vegetables and get some leeks. Identify as leeks. These are leeks. Excellent. And then tomorrow I will double check what the sky event is, although I think I already know. I need the dripping. Make leek soup, a dish with edge, moon, and nectar. in good shape. I could also try and get another... Actually, there's one thing I can do for getting a memory. If I'm going to read Voyages of Furnishing of Oriel next, I'll just double check. These are all 18s. And assuming I don't make a determination... Actually, you know what? Yeah. So Rose, Sky, and Winter doesn't help any of these. So I think I'm going to stay put on that. But theoretically, so let's say I read Voyages of Furnishing of Oriel tomorrow. So that would give me Sea Stories. Sea Stories should be Moon and Rose, if I'm not mistaken. Grail and Rose. Sorry, Grail and Moon. Okay. So definitely Desires and Dissolutions. Okay, so what we would do here... So what I want to do is basically just try and find something that I can apply to tomorrow. So what I'll do in this case is I'll read a book that gets me a confounding parable. That's the easiest one that I can use overnight. I can read The Origins of Hours because I keep reading it for the memory and never get the memory. But yeah, that'll give me a head... I mean, obviously there's a bunch of work that I need to do to actually be able to read this thing, but... Alright, an afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, and steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. We should finish the soup reasonably soon. I feel we're about due for a Numa, so I wouldn't be surprised if that came up tomorrow. And sort of as I threatened, I am going to take the time to have a small break. Again, I know I never want to I never want the number of people watching to be a determination in terms of like whether I stay longer or not, but obviously it's a little bit of a smaller crowd tonight, so I'm a little conscious. I think the one thing that I try to do in this case is I try not to do anything too like significant or dramatic where people are like, oh, I wish I was there for that. But on the other hand, I also want to make progress in the game. But yeah, I think I'm gonna get my... Or here, I'll wait the 8 seconds, and then I'll take my break. And then we can be back. The main thing about this particular salon is I want an idea of who possible candidates for the Lighthouse Institute are. So this is partly taking the measure of certain candidates. The Origins of Hours, the sage and ecstatic Soham, a frequent visitor to the Mansus, claimed to have discoursed with the Beach Crow in person. Soham later insisted on a sky burial. Soham's writings veer from poetry to confession. He identifies from flesh those who were mortal, from blood those who arose from sacrifice, from light entry from the glory, and from stone those who arose before his knowledge. He insists that the moth was the first god who was blood, but later contradicts himself and claims it was the Red Grail. The Mansus was different before the first god came from light, but never doubted existed, even then. Actually, this is something I should ask you, Jamie. You asked about what principles I identify with the most, but do you have a favorite hour, which is, I think, in general related to the aspect question, but it's not necessarily the same as... It's not exactly the same thing. I will leave, and that's obviously an open one for the chat too, if anybody else wants to weigh in. I'm gonna take my break now. Excuse me. I'll try not to make it too long, but I used the last of my water to make the tea that I had at the beginning of the stream, so it is going to be a little bit of a longer one. I'll try not to let it, hold on for too long though. But yes, when we're back, I'm going to be hosting a salon for likely candidates for the Lighthouse Institute. My guess here is I'm going to need to find a treasurer. I think I have a secretary solvent. I'm pretty sure I have a secretary vigilant. Not so sure on a secretary enigmatic. I actually have multiple secretaries nunciant. And I know who I'd like as my secretary persistent, but that's a whole other question. So I think, just taking a quick read. I may actually have half of the positions to still fill in. Doesn't mean, like, I do have other options. I have people that I can fill that role for, but it doesn't mean that these are the ones that I want the most. Anyways, this is something that we will, figure out on the other side of the break. So I will see you all in a little bit. Now would be a good time to get up and have a stretch if you have been watching since the start, or maybe if you've just been sitting down for a long time. But like I said, I'll be back as soon as I can. Alright, so my apologies for the wait there. It did take some time for the kettle to boil, but we're back and we are ready for some more. Let's see where we are. Alright. So first of all, we'll wait to see what happens when we cross over into summer, or possibly Numa. And I always wait for the... It's not just the weather, but I actually want to see specifically if the... Okay, yeah, so we are into a proper season now. So we're on to the Affair of the Particular Mystique. I'm expecting we'll have a few more... Hey, Algrins, good to see you. So yeah, we're going to move towards the Voyages of Furnish and of Oriel. However, the first thing I want to do is get that last little bit of intel on the determinations that I can make. I keep getting this wrong. It should be furs and feathers. Okay. So result. That's Brinculate. There we go. And the journal. Alright, so the city unbuilt will rise in noon. This history, this is my last and greatest work. This will be the last city on Earth. When it passes, so will the world. Or, Magnate, the city unbuilt will rise in noon. I found my peace. This will be the last city on Earth. When it passes, so will the world. So this is an interesting dilemma, right? So, I kind of need to decide between... So there's Ys and there's... So of my choices, let me just write this down again. Yeah, so we've got the city unbuilt in Ys. We've got the city unbuilt in Noon. We've got There Will Be No Second Dawn. And we've got the Peace of the Low Red Sun. And each of these are interesting in their own way. I think I'm more willing to drop... No Second Dawn. So first, I would need to decide... Yeah, man. Okay, so like the challenge I'm trying to think of here would be if I'm going to go for the city unbuilt, which of the two do I go for? Like, why do I think Noon is more appropriate, or why do I think Ys is more appropriate? I have a thought. Okay, well, before I write anything down, I want to make something. Now, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little surprised that I just have the one xanthotic essence, but hey, there we go. Brighten the essence into the Incastum Terminale Uzult. And Mother of Ants is a good one, so I guess you must have liked Slaying of the Seven Coiled then. Alright, let me see. I don't think there's Lantern for this, is there? Oh, heck. Can make the Ichor Vitreous, but I actually don't remember which one of these gives me Xanthotic Essence. Damn it! It could actually be a Forge one now that I think of it. Okay, that'll do. So liquid is one thing. I do need that last little bit of lantern. Excuse me. What do I do here? I really don't want to use up the last of the... Or not the last. I don't want to use up the ionic essence if I can avoid it. Agave Eterna is a little much to give up. But I think I can get away with... Excuse me. I think if I use the hurricane lamp... Oh, but then I need to find a way of getting the ink in here. But you know what? The refulgin should cover me there. Unless I don't have it. I think I've made life difficult for myself. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. Let's do, we'll do this fast, oh, kitchenware. I don't think this is lantern kitchenware, though. So liquid's easy to add. I just need to find the one lantern. It can kind of come from anywhere. Catwink, really? No, okay. And this is unexpected. The only thing is I don't think... Yeah, I can't fit it in there. So this is maddening because this is actually the one time I have a use for the sand. And I could theoretically do this. The problem is that I'd be down the two... So... Well, okay, actually, let's give this a shot. So I add the... Oh, right, sorry. So I guess it would have to be pyroglyphics in this. Ugh. I'm not feeling good about this at all. So it would have to be a liquid with 2 lantern. That doesn't work at all. So yeah, I made a problem for myself by using this one. That's maddening I don't have a refulgin, though. So, I'd still like to experiment with... Okay, well, actually, if it's about experimentation, I can... Possibly, yeah, okay. I can add the +5, because again, right now we're just trying to find... I'm trying to find as many things that will allow me to... to make the xanthotic essence. I let that... Wait, okay. This may actually give me a bit more, so purifications and exaltations... No, they're both 7. Okay. Nice to know, though, I suppose. Contemplations as well. And Auroral Contemplations actually gives me one more, which is good. I don't think there's much point in looking at any of the others, actually. So, now that I know that, if we take the Faust, the Auroral Contemplations, so that's the 10, so that's just a question of liquid now, and we can get the liquid from the... No! Now, I'm hoping for a... Oh, you know what? Ah, yeah, so these are pigments, but they're not liquids. I don't want to use up something like the Ichor Vitreous just because it takes a little more effort to get these. So what I'm looking for is just a nice, simple, basic pigment to throw away. Liquid pigment to throw away. Now that's interesting. Alright, that's slightly frustrating that I did that. You know what? Let's go nuts. Does what I need it to. There's my replacement Xanthotic Essence, and I'll maybe... Actually, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for me to make... I'll save up some Faust, and I'll maybe make a... And actually, you know what? I might as well commit now. I'll maybe make some reserve Refulgin until I get my stocks back up. So, the reason why I've been messing around with Xanthotic Essence is so that I can take the Newman papers. Of course, I got rid of my sky. Furs and feathers will do the trick, though. Alright, make a determination, the from nowhere origin. The Thriddage kind of the Carapace Cross dream themselves out of black glass to be their own monarch. If we inherit the empty throne, we dream ourselves into every night to come. Add Sky and Forge to your journal, replaces any other origin determination. Adding determinations to your journal makes it first possible, then easier to write a matching history. And we will... Okay, so if I'm going to be reading a moon book, the 3 and the 3 probably isn't a bad one to choose. Let me just double check that I've got that right. Huh. Oh, I'm glad I checked that. 3 rules is not moon. So great counterfeit, loopholes. Yeah, you know what? It's been a while since we read loopholes. All right. Crack track. Arab. Nectar, the fruits of knowledge. Now, I did say that I was going to be leveling up Sea Stories, Pearl and Tide, and Desires and Dissolution. So that's Moon and Grail and Moon and Rose. So there's nothing stopping me from getting that reading done now. It's going to take us a while, but I can at least get started. And in fact, I'm also going to start this off right. I would like the Stolen Secret first. Alright, I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Now, I would have used the Tower Falls and Tower Rises to get the Confounding Parable, but we're getting that from sleep. I guess the Lake Fusino recordings, though, will give me a beguiling melody. So we'll use that. Now, unless, I mean, it probably wouldn't hurt for me to get the lessons out of this. It's a little more than I was expecting, but I'm trying to remember if any of these give me, I don't think they give me the moon or grail I need. I at least don't remember offhand, so I'll skip those for now. Yeah, let's just focus on the basics. So we've got the Stolen Secret, we've got the Beguiling Melody. These don't help me with Moon, Rose, and Grail. We already have this. These don't help. Those don't. Satisfaction will help, though. Foresight doesn't help. Solace doesn't. Impulse. Oh, sorry. Intuition will, though. Fear doesn't. Ooh, we're really coming up short here. Okay. So salt definitely will help. Gossip as well. And contradiction. But it seems like we couldn't fill up all the desks for today, and that's a little concerning. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything obvious. So Sea Stories, Grail and Moon, Pearl and Tide, Rose and Moon. Desires and Dissolutions the same as Sea Stories, yeah. So if I'm really having that much difficulty, I think that just reflects the path I chose. I suppose the good news is that it is only 4 for Desires and Dissolutions. Pearl and Tide will probably be the really tricky one, but we'll figure it out. I could also start writing the invitations, but I'll have a lazy summer. Alright, I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. I'm going to hold off on the rain if I can keep that back. I should probably be making a bit of money. If I can keep that back for something like leveling up Sea Stories, that just makes my life easier. Yeah, once we see who the once we see who the guest is, we'll write the invitations. We might even be able to do the salon tonight, but I think I'll save it for tomorrow. Hey, Arthur Moore. All right, the affair of the particular mystique. The Suppression Bureau has a growing interest in the recent fad for unconventional, often prophetic, religious movements. No laws have been broken. Nothing sinister has come to light. All these movements are comfortingly solar in nature, but there does seem to be something going on. Lieutenant Arthur Thomas Moore, retired, hero, pilgrim, traitor. He'll always be a soldier, but never again can he only be a soldier. Good day to you. May I come in? Prophecy Librarian. This is a time of prophecy. All right. Serpent root. A massive rootstock, shiny with age, but still somehow viable. Tiny spidery scratchings marked with embedded eggshell shards encode a cryptic message. Seaborn, tide-drawn, Meniscate sister, witch lover. The House of the Moon will always have its messenger, though its messenger is different each time, in eye and flesh and heart. feats posterns loopholes set down against the advent of eternity by powers favoring imperfection and impermanence. When eternity came into the world, certain prudent powers arranged loopholes, the house of the moon, the persistence of possibility, the right to vengeance. In the right histories, those loopholes will open again. All right. So we're going to use this to read a book. Fekri's Herbery, the early wisdom of Isin Fekri, at that point a traveling healer, much later the secretary salvant of the Curia of the Isle. As a Scaptodon, Isin may consume only that which is found in the earth, so he's best with root lore. Isin identifies the pale seaweed found on the beaches of Cornwall as a useful source of rose and winter aspect. His tone here is a little guilty, perhaps because he's showing an interest in sea produce, which might be thought unwise for a Scaptodon, and perhaps because his proposal to name it Ava's Locks suggests a tiny crush on the Pale Lady of Brandkrug. The Velletri interviews, interrogation of a man named Lacombe, a former Nocturnal Branch inspector, now identified as terminally robogoid. Lacombe is not especially lucid, and the state called robogoia evidently includes a malady of the lungs which causes coughing fits. He weakens audibly over the course of the interrogation. He is questioned about the disposition of various unsanctioned items recovered from a Nocturnal Branch raid on a castle at Ortuccio in the region of the Fucine Marshes. He is, however, defiant as well as incoherent. Lacombe insists the items have been put to good use. He derides Nocturnal Branch as the lackeys of Calyptra. Alarmingly, during the last few minutes of the interrogation, he begins to insist that his interrogator should burn the library. He waxes enthusiastic about the fire he wants to see, leading to a final coughing fit, after which the interview abruptly ends. The Larkabine Codex. Christopher Larkabus claimed to have purchased 2 handwritten copies of the Codex from a family of witches on the shores of the Sea of Marmara. A third was given to the sea. The sister and witch came from the west, where they were born in 2 wombs, one a priestess, one a monster. Nevertheless, they loved each other from birth and met in secret to seek union. When the Great Drought came, the kings of that land tried to sacrifice the princess and the witch, so they sailed across the sea. When despair took them, they flung themselves into the drowning waters, and so found the Painted River, where they entered the Mansus through the offices of the Red Grail. Nevertheless, the Codex ends with a condemnation of the Grail. The Queens of the Rivers, a surreal contemporary play by the enigmatic Monica Medina, in which the Queens of the Rivers are murdered one by one. The Queen of the Vistula is poisoned, the Queen of the Dnieper chokes on a fishhook, the Queen of the Tagus is burnt alive. The culprit, it transpires, is the audience. The surviving queens are directed to execute whatever audience members do not escape. A surprisingly lucid epilogue suggests that the correspondence of river names with historical events does provide clues to secret histories behind our own. Against the sisterhood of the knot and the foulness of their depraved customs, Hieronymus Pseudo-Hypnotomachus wrote this furious screed about the sinister influence of the sisterhood of the knot on his own Church of the Unconquered Sun. Hieronymus claims that the powers served by the sisterhood of the knot made an arrangement. The Thunderskin loved the ewe, and the Grail destroyed him as restitution for the destruction of the Axe's loved ones. Hieronymus's writing becomes incoherent with rage at this point. Hieronymus recovers his composure, eventually, to describe how the Thunderskin entered the Mansus through the Peacock Door. This, Hieronymus insists, is abomination upon abomination, but then the most abominable of doors has always been an abomination. The Wainscot Histories, subtitled Stories from Behind the Walls, a miscellany of non-traditional histories, including battles not generally acknowledged and countries which appear on no map, told in a playful, apparently fictional manner. Gore does not mention the Mansus directly, but constant coy metaphorical references to ascending the staircase of years, to the doors of sleep, and to the blue light of dawn suggest he had commerce with the unseen world. It was common in that time to speak of the division of the sun, by which contemporaries understood the eruption of barbarian forces and of their uncouth gods. And the Lake Fucino recordings of the folk dances of the Fucine Marshes. The wailing of flutes, the roaring of drums, cries like birds lost in the marshes. These are the songs the sisters sang to the witch, that the Thunderskin roared to the sky, the songs with which the Dwendrazons of the Mansus keep their vigil. Once heard, they are not forgotten. Sweet enchantment of the song. All right. So obviously the part we're behind on right now are the voyages of Vernician. Oh. I'm the librarian of Hush House, and I have made my determination. We came from nowhere. The three-inch kind of the Carapace Cross dream themselves out of black glass to be their own monarch. If we inherit the empty throne, we dream ourselves into every night to come. All right. So let's get the reading done first. Perhaps. All right, still short by 2. Moon culmination. I can master this mystery. Enough moon to match mystery moon. So in anticipation of the next one, I'm going to read the Carmine Petal Unexpurgated. We'll get the... One moment. Oh, I'm going to need the Fusine for that, so... Okay. While I wait then, I'm going to take a peek at the 3 and the 3. Good. You know, the funny thing is I haven't used a single Nillicant for my determinations yet. How you doing, Lord Gloom? Good to see you. Folks, for those of you who are fond of card games, and I realize that is a little bit of a funny thing to say for Book of Hours. It's less of a card game than Cultist Simulator, let's say. But Lord Gloom is a streamer who originally found me through Brace Yourself Games' wonderful Cobalt Core. I've seen him do a variety of things, quite a bit of Escape from Tarkov lately, but he also plays live Magic the Gathering, and then a few other sort of indie games that I haven't really seen before, but definitely a very nice streamer, somebody very supportive of me, and somebody who's worth checking out because he actually plays games at a higher skill level than me, so you actually get more than just somebody talking at you the whole time. Oh, very nice. Yeah. It's occurred to me it's probably been... Well, no, it's not even probably. It's definitely been years since I played Magic. And it's not even that I disliked the game. It's just I don't own a physical deck anymore. And it's just kind of one of those things. Actually, I will confess, there is a side of me, as interested as I am in Magic, I know the rules have changed a lot. So there's also that sort of side, is like, do I really want to learn this again? But on the other hand, I see everybody else having fun with Magic, so... All right. England is hedged and pricked with prophecies this year. Some of them I fear, some of them I doubt. I hope to find guidance here in Hush House. So he's got 3 lanterns, so we really don't need anything too tough. We got In the Mallory. Yeah, In the Mallory will do. The sun's plan, it is a labyrinth, just as much as the labyrinth of lions itself. For almost 80 years I have been guessing at its crossings and turnings. A long time, even with the measures I have taken to keep those years at bay. I am beginning to hope now that I will see the heart of it before I die. I always like the rain sound in this. There's a few... And when I get Winter and Subtle Old Soldier plays is one, A Rainy Day, when the music is just sort of finished. That's another sound I like. There's a few good ones. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. So I'm out of sync on this one, but it's fine. I don't need to fuss too much about it. It is summer. I'm sitting on the bench outside the Sweet Bones, eating crumbly cheese and nettle wrappings and good black rye bread, soaking up the sun. Alright, and we've got our this is the replacement Xanthotic Essence, but I feel like we can do better. So with Keeper level Lantern, Xanthotic Essence is the precursor of the Great Ink Result. You don't enjoy crumbly cheese and nettle wrappings, Lord Gloom? From what I understand, it's quite good. Let me see. We will rely on the Encyclopedia Galactica to... Alright, so I've got nettle soup here. Yeah, okay. So here's one for it. It wasn't what I was looking for, but... Nettle soup is a traditional soup from stinging nettles. Nettle soup is eaten mainly during spring and early summer when young nettle buds are collected. Today, nettle soup is mostly eaten in Scandinavia, Finland, Iran, Ireland, and Eastern Europe, with regional differences in recipe. However, historically, consumption of nettles was more widespread. Nettle stew was eaten by inhabitants of Britain and Ireland in the Bronze Age, 3,000 years ago. The consumption of young stinging nettle in medieval Europe was used medicinally, primarily as a diuretic and to treat joint pain, arthritis, diabetes, acne, anemia, hay fever, and as a blood purifier. Various Native American tribes have used stinging nettles for centuries, including the Lakota using the root for stomach pain, the Ojibwa using the stewed leaves for skin issues, and used it to fight dysentery. The Potawatomi using the roots for fever reduction, and the Winnebago used nettles for allergy systems. Stinging nettles are known to have a high nutritional value. Sorry, I'm cleaning my glasses when I'm reading this. Stinging nettles are known to have a high nutritional value, including calcium, magnesium, iron, vitamins A and B. Historically, one of the easy ways of consuming nettles is either through a soup or tea, because the boiling water deactivates the nettle from stinging. Regional variations. There are regional and cultural differences for recipes in nettle soup. Fennoscandia, Finland. One of the traditional local dishes is a nettle and fish soup in the Finnish medieval town of Porvoo. A typical Swedish recipe for nettle soup involves first blanching the nettles, and then straining them from the liquid. The liquid is then strained again to remove the dirt, pieces of sand or gravel from it. Then a roux is made with butter and flour into which the nettle water, the water in which the nettles were blanched, is poured. The nettles are chopped very finely or pureed together with other ingredients, which typically include chives or ramson or garlic and chervil or fennel. The chopped or pureed nettles and herbs are then put into the nettle water, brought to a boil, and then left to simmer for a few minutes. The soup is commonly served with sliced boiled eggs or creme fraiche, and occasionally with poached eggs. Native American. A Native American stinging nettle and squash soup recipe provided by the Northwest Indian College consists of stinging nettles, acorn squash, broth, garlic, onion, and oil. The squash is cut, deseeded, and roasted. In a separate pot, the onions and garlic are sautéed until translucent, and then the squash and nettles, which can be cooked or fresh nettles, are added. Together they all cook in the pot for 20 minutes and then finished in a blender. Iran. There's a nettle soup recipe from the Mazandaran province of Iran. There are variations on the ingredients for this soup recipe. However, all of the recipes include stinging nettles, garlic, onion, chickpeas, turmeric, rice, lentils, greens, oil, and either pomegranate paste or pomegranate molasses. Optional ingredients can include other types of beans, pinto beans, fava beans, beets, butternut squash, other types of greens, local northern Iranian herbs, zolang, and nirige, spinach, Persian leek, cilantro. The water that the nettles are cooked in for preparation of the soup is saved and used as a drinking tea for medicinal purposes. Ireland. Irish nettle soup recipe includes nettles, potatoes, cream, leeks, onions, butter, and broth. Typically, nettle soup in traditional Irish culture is consumed in late spring, April and May, and is associated with purifying blood, reducing rashes, keeps the rheumatics away, and adds vitamins to the diet. The Pontic Greeks, who originate from Turkey, make nettle soup with leeks, onions, bulgur, garlic, and hot peppers. In the Pontic language, this soup is called kintatea. In Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Ukrainian nettle soup, green borscht, recipes include onion, carrots, potatoes, dill, and nettle. Cabbage is often added to increase nourishment. It may be either vegetarian or cooked with meat broth, and Ukrainian nettle soup is served with a sliced boiled egg and a spoon of smetana, a dairy product. It is usually cooked with fresh nettle in late spring. The Ukrainian nettle soup is a variation of sorrel soup. In Russia, the traditional Russian shichi in the spring is prepared with the first spring greens, including sorrel, orek, and nettle. Such shichi is called green. And Lord Gloom says, we wrap our Cornish yargs with the young, vibrantly green nettles, leaves of spring. They are not always easy to find, but we have our favorite patches. In woodlands, we manage sustainably. We pick and freeze, and by the time we brush them on the following traditional pattern of concentric circles, the sting hasn't left them, but the flavor hasn't. What's the quote from? I'm curious. Culinary. Okay, I see competitive eating. I'm very curious about this. A cheese site. Huh. It has a flavor similar to spinach when cooked. Young plants are harvested by many Native American communities and are cooked and eaten in spring when other foods are scarce. Soaking stinging nettles in water or cooking removes the stinging chemicals from the plant, which allows them to be handled and eaten without injury. After the stinging nettle enters its flowering and seeding stages, they develop gritty particles called cytoliths. Many sources claim consumption of these can irritate the kidneys and urinary tract, but there is no medical evidence to support the claim. Cystoliths are made of calcium carbonate and will not dissolve when boiled. Leaves harvested post-flowering must have their cystoliths broken down by acid, as in the fermentation process. In its peak season, nettle contains up to 25% protein dry weight, which is high for a leafy green vegetable. The leaves are also dried and may then be used to make herbal tea, which can be done with the nettle's flowers. Nettles can be used in a variety of recipes, such as polenta, pesto, and puree. Nettle soup is common use of the plant, particularly in northern and eastern Europe. Nettles are sometimes used in cheese making, such as for Cornish yarg, and as flavoring in varieties of Gouda. Nettles are used in Albania, Montenegro, Serbia, North Macedonia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina as part of the dough filling for the borek pastry. The top baby leaves are selected and simmered and then mixed with other ingredients such as herbs and rice before being used as a filling between dough layers. Similarly, in Greece, its tender leaves are often used after simmering as a filling for hortopita, which is similar to spanakopita, but with wild greens rather than spinach for a filling. Young nettles can also be used to make an alcoholic drink. Now this I am curious about. Competitive eating. In the United Kingdom, an annual World Nettle Eating Championship draws thousands of people to Dorset, where competitors attempt to eat as much of the raw plant as possible. Competitors are given 60-centimeter stalks of the plant from which they strip the leaves and eat them. Whoever strips and eats the most stinging nettle leaves in a fixed time is the winner. The competition dates back to 1986, when two neighboring farmers attempted to settle a dispute about which had the worst infestation of nettles, and one of them said to the other, "I'll eat any nettle of yours that's longer than mine." British men, they're crazy. All right, one last one, because we at least now have an image. So the question here, Lord Gloom, really is why aren't you eating more nettles? This is, of course, appropriate because of the location. Cornish yarg is a semi-hard cow's milk cheese made in Cornwall, England. Before being left to mature, the cheese is wrapped in nettle leaves to form an edible, though moldy rind. The texture varies from creamy and soft immediately under the nettle coating to carefully cheese-like crumbly texture in the middle. This is definitely what we're eating. Although made according to an historic method, Cornish yarg is actually the product of the British cheese-making renaissance in the 1980s. Oh, interesting. Where its roots are inspired by traditional British territorial cheeses. The cheese is produced at Liner Dairies Cheese Company on Pengreep Farm near Truro by Catherine Mead, Dane Hopkins, and team. Yarg is simply Gray, spelt backwards. It is named after Alan and Jenny Gray, enterprising farmers who found a 1615 recipe by Gervase Markham for nettle-wrapped semi-hard cheeses in their attic. The original recipe is thought to date back to the 13th century. In 1984, the Greys sold the recipe to Michael and Margaret Horrell, farmers wanting to diversify into cheesemaking. Mead began working with the Horrells in 1985, helping to develop the business. She built a second dairy on Pengreet Farm in 2001 and 2006. When the Horrells retired, all production moved to Linher Dairies. Cornish Yarg is made using pasteurized cow's milk sourced from neighboring farms. After pressing and brining, nettles are coated on by hand. The application of nettles changes the acidity on the outside of the cheese, thus affecting the manner in which the curd breaks down and matures. So you've now learned more about cheese nettles than you ever wanted to know. Let us carry on. Excuse me. So I guess at this point we're just waiting for the book to be finished reading. Let's start writing some invitations. All right, this is an Incastum Terminale, one of the great inks. Use it with your journal to record a history and fulfill your reason for coming to Hush House, if you so choose. Uzalt, the ink in which the first history was recorded by the unwise mortal. Uzalt is the bright yellow gold of lantern. Light lingers on it for a little while, even in the dark. Gold is not needed to mix Uzalt, but amber is. Unobtrusive shrines to Uzalt could sometimes be found in the churches of the unconquered sun. The Three and the Three, the St. Chiavi manuscript. This book describes the operations of the Chancel and the Calyptra, two triads of ours with subtle, far-reaching powers and responsibilities. Of all the extant versions, this one has best survived the interventions of the Calyptra. Certain knowledge cannot be learnt by any entity below the rank of No. Outside the covenant of the Watchman's Tree, the enforcement of the rule is Calyptra. The three who enforce it are Calyptra also. It is said that Janus elects Calyptra, that the Chancel is the judgment of Janus, and that Janus is a wound in the law. The Watchman's Tree is a compromise. If Calyptra could end it, they would. If the Watchman could end Calyptra, he might. Between their planes conflicting, sparks illuminate the angles of unmade law. The hours are bound by their own edicts, even the Chancel and the Calyptra. That's why their deepest rules are secret. In certain histories, if we know those deepest rules, we know that even the Chancel and the Calyptra, what the Chancel and the Calyptra may not do. And the reason I brought that in, it's a completely arbitrary choice I'm making, but I guess we'll do this at Nona's desk. I'm going to take the 3 rules. I'm going to take my journal. Take quenchings and quellings. I'll do just a basic core for now. What was I thinking? Huh. I forgot that Orpiment Exultant also has Sky. Make a determination. Horned axe oldest. The horned axe bears 2 blades, permits passage. When passage is to be permitted, waits at the threshold. The horned axe, who forbids contradiction, is the oldest hour. Other hours might seem older. They are not older. All right, so for the affair of the particular mystique, Dr. Southey refused the blandishments of the cult called the Ivory Dawn, but suspected that they honored her by reason of a pre-immortal in her ancestry. It wasn't clear what Zachary Wakefield intended with the new crop of cults, but it was clear it was nothing especially constructive, and Lieutenant Moore dared to hope that he might begin to understand the Sun's plan. All right, so again, we're waiting for the lessons at this point. Now I just need to post it, so first of the invitations, but certainly not the last. Better now. All right. Oh, I was going to... oh, okay, we'll wait until I've leveled up my items, but I was going to say I should also try to... should maybe try to get the replacement golden marrow. Okay, request Olympi's presence. Now I just need to post it. So I think it was Aaron Peel and Schaller, if I'm not mistaken. So the real question is, can I still do it at the governor's desk? So I don't have a scale for serpents and venoms. I do have the moon for sickle and eclipse. This is a fun little game, so let's see if I can do all the invitations. So the tricky one's going to be heart, but weaving and not working would give me heart and moth, so I think I can do that here. Governor's desk is OP. So I remind you all that Governor Collars is the misunderstood hero of... Oh wait, no, it's Nectar that I need, damn it. But yeah, underappreciated hero of Book of Hours. All right, the voyages of Furnishon of Oriel, the impossible travels of a sea captain of the late Phoenician era, suppressed throughout recorded history. Those who read it were said to disappear. Furnishon clearly visited the Mansus, sailing the length of the Painted River. He also claims to have traversed a sea of finest sand, to have dared the blazing waves of the sun's surface, and to have descended to an underworld ocean lit by lamps of black nephrite. Furnishon's final voyage is to retirement on a peaceful island across an evening sea, where he identifies a spring whose waters will keep him safe. I will be forgotten, he declares, and this work my only trace. Another salt memory. And 3 sea stories. All right, so first of all, we'll put this on the salt pile. So we'll do the salon tomorrow. Now on to the real fun. So first thing I'm going to do is level up Desires and Dissolutions, because that I'll potentially need to replace some items for. Now Pearl and Tide needs Moon and Rose, so the focus here should only be on Grail items. As much as it can, anyway. Like obviously some of these. So the Rain we're going to save for the next one, so I just need 2 more. And for that, I guess we do... I'll do Intuition and Contradiction. So the next one's going to be Pearl and Tide. So that's Confounding Parable, Stolen Secrets, Salt, and Gossip. Ugh, this is going to get a little ugly. So the Intuition will push this over the edge for... yeah, okay. So I think I'm going to have to use everything, and... alright. I don't need to kick up a fuss about it, but yeah, I'm going to need to... Basically, I'm going to need to use all of my existing memories, and then I'm going to need to do another batch of reading, I think. Okay, we'll get the contradiction. So we'll read as the sun is course. So these are the 2 to get me the 5 that I need for Pearl and Tide. I will get the Grail that I can, so that's the Gossip. Or no, it's not the Gossip, it's the Beguiling Melody and the Satisfaction. We can read one of these for that, actually. So I think we're on to the Morphe Codex. It's that or Intimations of the Skin. And then we'll apply, I guess a Fost in this case. No, not a Fost, because I might use that for something else. Okay. I'm reluctant to use the Trist. Excuse me. But it's necessary. Actually, we did Fekri's Herbery, so I guess we'll start over. I think I know the Forge book that I want to read, but I'm just going to see if there's... I can actually have trouble remembering the other Forge ones. Yeah, so Merciless Alteration gives us Forge, and then the Bells of Ys should also give me a Forge. Is it really just those 2? No, Paths of the Sun. Alright, make a determination. The Horned Axe Oldest. I'm the librarian of Hush House, and I've made my determination. So, these are all of the determinations that we can make in the game. So, Silverbound Journal. I was rich, but something was missing. I am no longer rich, and still something is missing. Hush House is a place of conclusions, and here, as librarian, I may find mine. The Magnate came to the house to conclude a history where they will find peace, but you can complete the game by recording any history. You might wish to begin your studies with the Hushery Wisdom. I've lived too long, but I'm not ready to die. I've tasted everything, and it wasn't enough. Give me silence, give me peace, give me the peace of snow. We came from nowhere. The Thriddage kind of the Carapace Cross dreamed themselves out of black glass to be their own monarch. If we inherit the empty throne, we dream ourselves into the night to come. Black the first flower. The Watchman's Tree is the covenant that forbids knowledge to mortals, but permits it in the covenant houses of the tree, like Brankrug Isle. The black flower of Calyptra, the night unwounded, is its first defense. Forbidden knowledge must not be spoken, must not be written, must not be known. The treat is rooted in night. Speech the key. Language is the key. It was language that opened the doors of the Mansus. Without language, we could have had no peace. Without language, we would still be beasts, worms, mud. And the Horned Axe, the oldest. The Horned Axe bears 2 blades, permits passage when passage is to be permitted, waits at the threshold. The Horned Axe, who forbids contradiction, is the oldest hour. Other hours might seem older. They are not older. All right. So again, we wait on the... We wait on the books. I wanted to make a bunch of Refulgen, and I probably still will, but I did want to make sure that I'd sort of locked in my last memories before I started using all my elements of the soul. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. And the skill is now level 5. Its power aspects have also increased, so we need to wait for Pearl and Tide. Sadly, I'm just one short on that one, and the rain doesn't help in this case. I could do something like use the occult scrap and... I mean, maybe that would have been a better idea, but we're already committed to the memories, so... Actually, what I can do here... so I need... I think I've actually overdone it. So I need 5 for the Pearl and Tide. I'm getting both of those. So I'm already up 1, and then I've got the rain, so I'm up 2. So I just need 3 more. Two more. One more. Okay, the funny thing on this one is, now I probably don't need to read any books. So, let's see how many Refulgin I can make. Yeah. The Refulgin here is really just about getting the getting some more Xanthotic Essence, and even then, I actually don't need that much more, but it's an opportunity for me to just get a little something extra. Also, it's just a chance for me to learn which ones give it to me. Okay. May not be an exhaustive list, but I'm happy to leave it there. So I'm going to need to wait. I've got 18 seconds left on here, but only 4 on these books, so I'm going to have a little bit of a wait. Alright, The Republic of Teeth, an eccentric political tract by Valentine de Wolf. Valentine suggests that rulers should be elected to govern by serpents, not their subjects, for the serpent, being cold-blooded in its nature, is incorruptible. Valentine's initial proposal is that a college of electors should subject themselves to the bites of venomous serpents, which he grades and details, preferring the least dangerous, and should allow the resulting deliria to guide them in their choice of people's representatives. He becomes concerned, however, by the practicalities of ensuring equal quantities of venom in each case, and gets halfway into a proposal for using birds instead in the selection process before giving up mid-sentence. As the sun is coarse, Joel of the Bridge, retired soldier and sometimes tollkeeper, wrote this epic poem about Alexander's famously inexplicable decision at Issus to withdraw from the war with the Achaemenids and his subsequent return to Macedonia. Alexander meets at Issus with Darius, king of kings, for 3 days and 3 nights. On the first day, the two men trade threats. On the second, promises. On the third, secrets. Darius tells Alexander something so shattering that he retires to his tent to consider matters of strength and matters of mastery. At dawn on the 4th day, Alexander announces, the sun has his course upon which he returns, and so do I. He returns to Macedonia, executing 2 of his captains when they dispute his decision. He brings with him the names of a blind god and the rite of sacred betrayal. For Joel opines, without betrayal there would be an end to war. The Morphe Codex, a priestess of the Sisterhood of the Knot, claims to have discerned the true meaning of the Thunderskin's birth. The writer credits the Red Grail, the Ring Yew, and the Horned Axe, the three powers the Sisterhood reveres, with agreeing a final treaty between the Hours of the House and the Hours they'd displaced. The Thunderskin loved the Yew, and the Grail destroyed him as restitution for the slaying of the Horned Axe's sisters and brothers. The Thunderskin entered the Mansus through the Peacock Door, a privilege never given to the witch and sister, but then their merit was much less. The writer admits that entry through the Peacock Door is unseemly, but insists that under the circumstances there was no other way. And Emeranus Spitelli, a fragment of iron alloy meteorite carefully inscribed and polished. Who gave us fire? Who gave us steel? What is the sound of dusk? Of what alloy is wind forged? Esoteric secrets of metallurgy and resonance can be revealed, including directions towards the creation of a terrible bell. Ys by her arts found the strike tone that shakes the hours. For this reason, among many, the hours discouraged traffic with Ys, but a bell cast with the secret could speak the Ys note. And the Berry Book. Thirza Blake, 7th librarian of Hush House, talks about fruit, for no other apparent reason but that it was the kind of thing that she did. She talks about fruit in the woven language Kilisimi. Though as it once said, fruit is the womb of a plant. It was me. Take a few moments to think on that in ripened wisdom. I shall leave a blank space for your moments here in this page. Nectar, children mine. Cast my words into a sufficiency of nectar, and watch the Pyrus Persimmon burst from wood. Gather more nectar. Wring it from the trees and the earth, and our Persimmon gushes forth the sacrament. You will thank me. So this should be enough for all the leveling that I need to do. I'm just going to double check. So Pearl and Tide definitely needs the rose. And then we apply as much moon as we can. Okay, so that's 4 of 5. Right, and I'm getting the taste. So we're good. The water of the Isle has a very faint, very distinctive taste, sometimes called, described as apple shroomy. Every sweet has its sour. Emerson. So, let's level up our last 2 skills, and if I want tomorrow I can start reading the book, but I think we'll do the Salon first, so. Okay, Pearl and Tide, Sea Stories, Gossip, Confounding Parable, Stolen Secrets, Salt, and Contradiction. Add Fet. At last, I'm something of an authority in this. And I'm going to grab another Confounding Parable, I think. So Disciplines of the Hammer would be Edge and Forge. So 2 here. And Spices and Savors is next. So this is going to take quite a bit of effort. I might be able to try to turn a few of these into no, actually, that would take 90 seconds, so I should try the Xanthotic Essence the day after tomorrow. Night is fallen, dawn will come soon. Glow, little color. Alright, so this is going to need a temporary space. You know what, we'll just keep this in the temple. A white so pure that it remains visible even in utter darkness, like the moon or an insistent cat. Oh, Toric's cleansing. Well, that's what I get for not paying attention. The skill is now level 6. Its power aspects have also increased. So, last but not least, Sea Stories. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we apply the Arab. At last, I'm something of an authority in this. So again, we're going to take a break from all of the leveling to do... Now, I mean, I guess the good news here is we've got the Carmine Petal unexpurgated, which is 3 for Disciplines of the Hammer, and then the Wound Wounds is actually the last of the books that I have, so that'll be 3 Disciplines of the Scar. And then from there, the last text that I haven't really read, and this is just because I sort of had everything that I needed already, but we've got 3 films. So Experiment Beyond Sight, the Admonitory Automata Project, and The Open Head. I'm not quite sure when we're going to do those, but I'll save it for later. I don't think I can sleep on Torg's Cleansing. Yeah, that's edge only, and the Librarian's Quarters bed is too nice for that. Although I think the one thing I can do for today is ask the postman. Honestly, I was going to say we can send the mail out tonight, but I guess we don't really need to worry about that because we're going to start... excuse me. We're going to start the salon in the afternoon anyway. How are we for time? So I'm technically over, but you've all been very nice and patient with me. So we're going to do a salon for tonight, and then that'll be how we close out the evening. How about? I'm pretty happy with where we're at. All of the determinations are in the book. I think I have an idea about the history that I want to write as well. But this one is just to make sure that potential candidates for the Lighthouse Institute have their inspirations. So this is kind of overkill for the salon. So we have more whist than we need. More actually, we have just enough shot. I think anything with a 5, I think, has more than it needs. The one exception is health, but I've never seen the health be used in a salon, so. Alright, Lieutenant Arthur Moore, good to see you again. Hero, pilgrim, traitor, he'll always be a soldier, but never again can he only be a soldier. D.I. Douglas Moore, Detective Illuminate of the Suppression Bureau, a stoic but weary fellow. His dearest wish is to move to Chingford and grow roses, but the buggers won't let him retire. Madame Olympie Bichet, essayist, illustrator, critic, editor of the Carisham Review. Dr. Aaron Peel, exile, riddlemonger, thunderskin devotee, I'd rather say confidant. Impeccably dressed, but always in dark clothing so the stains don't show. Dark the dressings too, at his ankles and his wrists. I won't take a seat. It's kind of you to offer. It would be unkind of me to accept. And Father Stanislav John Schaller, priest, diplomat, gardener, a soft-voiced man with a very steady gaze. Okay, so under candidates, so for treasurer, none of these people work. Secretary Salvant, we could add Father Stanislav John Schaller. Now, it's notable, there's a couple things that wouldn't normally be a choice of mine. So we've got fear, care, well, I don't know. I can see one way or the other. So Fear Carapace, this one knows that the Carapace might consume humanity or alter it beyond recognition. And Agenda Stone Consume, this one would burn or shatter what remains of the gods from stone to fuel their own purposes. So we could do something like that. Secretary Vigilant. The Secretary Vigilant would ensure the Institute's safety. Currently, so you'll notice here that Douglas is a candidate, but unlike Arthur, he does not have Inspired. So in the case of Arthur Thomas Moore, We have Fear Devours. This one knows the perils of the hidden world. Alukites, Mansa spirits, hungry ghosts. Under Secretary Enigmatic, our candidates are Dr. Aaron Peel, Senior Corso Reverti, Dr. Yvette Southey, and Zachary Wakefield. However, Peel does not yet have inspiration to join. The Secretary Nunciant can be Serena Blackwood, Olympia Bichet, Dr. Ibn Aladim, or Connie Lee. Now, Bichet is in fact inspired, so she's got Fear Carapace as well as Agenda Peace. Or we've got Constance Lee. When it comes down to it, the Suppression Bureau is just another cabal deciding what books everyone else should read, and then reading them itself. My letter of resignation is ready. I'll send it somewhere safe without a return address. Here's how to reach me if you really need to. Connie is no longer a visitor and will take no further part in stories, but she may still become a founder of the Lighthouse Institute. So, if I would like the agenda revelation, this one wishes to share knowledge despite Calyptra, or Madame Bichet, who would have Agenda Peace and Fear Carapace, depending on which direction I want to go. I can add either one as the Secretary Nunciant. Secretary Persistent requires Legion. So the things we're short on, Secretary Enigmatic and Treasurer. Technically, we've already got Fraser Strathcoyne as inspired, though. So I'm just going to take a second here to make a couple notes. And I believe if I try to add the records here... Yeah, it doesn't let us go because we need all the entries. So sorry, I've just taken some notes here. Alright, so it's midday before the Great Division. This was the 6th hour when the priests led hymns to the sun and splendor. Now noon, as they say, is not as it was. Perhaps the new king will change that. It is often said of Lady Ava, later, that she was always good with mirrors. But that's not what I wanted. I wanted the bell. A salon in the Hall of Division. Bring back the mirrors, Bring light back to the mirrors where once Lady Ava held court. Here, one might have lunch in the afternoon or supper in the evening. A good host will provide at least one first course, one main course, one side dish, and one pudding. it was a side dish, not a first course. Alright, I think I'm probably going to have to... Ooh, this is going to get interesting. Probably a forge side dish is the easiest for me to bring in. Yeah, almonds actually just works on its own. Yeah, just we'll bring in the almonds. There's no need to get complicated. I should have checked, though. Oh, but Peel needs his... Right, oh, sorry. So the almonds are the right choice, but the almonds have to be the forge choice. Oh, used up all the... There's a temporary place I can put the beef. That'll do. So yeah, I definitely need the leek soup. Alright, so the other thing I can try... No, because both of these have the lantern, so that's not going to cover me. Yep, it's the best I got. I am, however, going to take a minute here and move the beef. My guests take their places for lunch. Keep an eye on the salon. As it progresses, you will need to add soul cards to encourage the conversation to flow. Different guests will need different soul cards. The more guests, the longer the salon will last. Lunch and supper last longer than less formal salons, allowing an extra interaction between your guests. Raise a complex question. Add a whist card. Aaron and Arthur are reminiscing about the city of Poon. Although Arthur has not visited it, he confines, since the time of the Maratha Empire, one exile after another. The Pentament's fate. Exile is addictive. You'll learn that too. A more sober tone. Add a Faust card. Stanislav and Olympi discuss the hours of the wood. Stanislav points out that monks cut their hair. He suggests, perhaps mischievously, that as a class they belong to the moth. Ask about dreams. Add a Fete card. Well, this is interesting. I'm actually one short on the Fete, I think. Arthur and Aaron are discussing which forbidden weapons should be permitted and which weapons have been permitted too long. Arthur is concerned by rumors of Dawnbreaker experiments in Britain. Aaron is bragging a little about his experiences with a terrible feather called the Imhuline Tectrix. Invite a challenge. Add a metal card. Stanislav asks Douglas about the death, reputedly murder, of the Abbess Nona almost 600 years ago. Douglas acknowledges it's technically within the Bureau's jurisdiction and that the Bureau doesn't recognize any statute of limitations short of eternity, and adds that he has a great deal on his plate, but promises to look into it and asks Stanislav some incisive questions about rare poisonous herbs. I relate more and more to Douglas as time goes by. Say something witty, add a shaft card. Olympi is trying to get to the bottom of Aaron's opinions on the new king. He is answering only in riddles, but she seems to find his answers illuminating. More sober tone, add a Faust card. Douglas has tracked down the long in the making of whom Aaron warned him last time. Aaron congratulates him. Douglas describes with distaste the empty eyes of his target's victims. A lively meal concludes. My guests leave happy. You've gained an additional potent memory. Okay, unwrap, unbox, unleash. So let's. I'm actually gonna make something of the tea right now. Okay, that's not gonna work. Ah. I'm glad there's a lot of fireplaces. Can I get the last one? Oh, yeah, here we go. Staff room stove. So this will cover us for our next few salons, I think. So, I'd kind of like to invite Douglas and Aaron again, but I think I'd like to bring in a few candidates before I resume. Well, I can kind of do it both ways. Oh, Stanislav aroused Douglas' interests in the long ago death of Abbess Nona. These two might say something else on the matter if you invite them both back for another salon. That's good to know. All right. So I have some ideas in terms of the next salon, but lively salon, you've held a lively salon. This is a marker to remind you that you can't hold another salon until next season. Satisfaction, that'll just probably go to waste, but got another curious hunch. A lesson, transformations, and liberation. Now we're going to have to actually make something of all of these lessons, so I may want to hold off on... Well, I don't know. I do actually want to read the book sooner than later. In fact, another way of thinking of this is I don't exactly need to preserve all my elements of the soul, so if I try and read this book now... Especially because I don't think I've ever read the unexpurgated Carmine Petal. Now, I don't have that much forge. Yeah, so I need 2 more, which is... oh! Okay, just enough. And yeah, from there we will want an edge. So my edge options, we did do Merciless Alteration last time. It'd be nice to have a little more variety. There's Irresistible Feast, Bells of Ys, which technically I'm already applying. I can't remember if there's another one. So Fundamental Aesthetic is either Inescapable Confinement or Final Understanding. Sun's Weakness doesn't have edge, I don't think. I think that's it. So, Irresistible Feast would be the best option. That's a VAC one. And then, what else was I gonna do? It's too late to try and level any of these up. Was definitely going to do something other than worry about the wound wounds. I was going to try and do something with the Xanthotic Essence as well, but it's too late for that again. Good lord, I'm really drawing a blank, and I remember having a pretty clear idea of wanting to do something. Okay, let me just think. So, Newman for the Edge. We're reading the book for the Forge. I don't see a huge amount of value in trying to preserve... Or actually, it occurred to me that I've got Heart here, so I probably can rest on the Satisfaction. So there's that. I wrote down Douglas and Aaron, Douglas and Schaller. So I think that's it. Yeah. All right, have a good one, Jamie. I'm actually going to be wrapping up myself, so we'll run this out till the evening, so we can start at the very beginning of the day. But, and I don't like doing this kind of sorting. But hey, it did it right. All right. But yeah, okay. So I think what I'm going to do is, oh yes, I need to distribute all my tea. All right. This is going to be a bit of an adventure to make this all fit. It's also going to be fun to see if I can remember where any of this stuff goes. I try not to put the coffee and stuff like that in areas where the books would be. Nope. That's encouraging. That was worth a shot. But yeah, again, I'm really running short on places to put things, so I may have to start making some exceptions. This is a weird place to put. Yeah, I think I'd rather not. This'll work though. I'm also reluctant to try and put them wherever the salons might be held, because that's just another thing that I need to drag out when the time comes. Alright, we'll move the cocoa, so we should at least get one more spot. So I only have one more pot of coffee that I need to place. And that can go... I'm gonna regret it if I need to put another drink there, so... I already used all that. I wonder... Oh, there you go. Oh, maybe not. Alright, that works. Okay, so I think for my immediate plans, everything's... I'm kind of good where I want to be. So here's my short and medium term plans, and this is mostly just so that I can get my to-do list written down. So first of all, I want to work out my transformations and liberations and such. So forge... Essentially, our lowest level is 5, so right now I'm looking at anything with a 5. Which looks like we don't have. Yeah, so it's the 6s. So Disciplines of the Hammer in this case would be the next one. So TNL. Magaphine Mysteries, Heart and Moon. Well, it's probably most appropriate to put Magaphine Mysteries. Herbs and Infusions, Heart and Nectar. Well, put it on itself. It's nice when it's easy like that. Sharps. Now, we'll probably use that to level up Inks of Containment or one of the other Moony ones. I guess Desires and Dissolutions is the next one on that. Rites of the Roots, that's an interesting one. So that's Moth and Nectar. Okay. Sorry, I'm losing track. Okay, Sickle and Eclipse is the last one, so that's kind of like Sharps. So it would be the Moon that I need to take care of, and looks like Sand Stories is already in line, so... So from there, I do know that we're already working on the Carmine Petal, not that one. So that's going to get me Disciplines of the Hammer. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to wait on that. Because I've already got 6 things on my to-do list. Now, in terms of the medium term, my next guest list, so ideally it's Douglas and Aaron and Douglas and Schaller. So like my little trinity of guests would normally be Douglas, Aaron, Schaller, and and then 2 others. But I do kind of want to evaluate some of the other people that I can bring in for the treasurer. So I'm thinking for salons, I'm going to actually do a little bit of cleanup on my list. So I think what I'll do is I'll do a run with the treasurers. And I did always say that the first time I brought Hokebald in, I would invite Reverend Timothy. So I think my next guest list is actually, it's just going to be a very straightforward every treasurer candidate plus Timothy. That seems to be the easiest. Fall guests. Winter Salon. Would be Corso, Yvette, Wakefield. Actually, in that case, we could go Aaron and Douglas. Okay, so I've got the next 3 salons planned out. So for the fall, we'll invite Fraser Strathcoyne, Kokilami Rajibi, Daymare, Hokebald of Posend, and Reverend Timothy. In winter, we'll invite Senior Corso Reverte, Yvette Southey, Zachary Wakefield, Aaron Peel, and Douglas Moore. And then in spring, I think I'm going to invite Aaron, Schaller, Douglas, Margot Matutine, and it might be interesting to try and bring in Echidna. Or at the very least, that's a free slot that's open. So that's kind of the next 3. That's the next 3 seasons accounted for. Now, over time, I'm hoping that this also means that we'll have finished the affair of the particular mystique. Right now, it can sort of help us in terms of the outcomes that we're looking for. Like there's at least potentially someone who can be inspired out of it. But it does sort of depend how the overall thing goes. And this is sort of what I mean when I say that I may wind up speeding up the different seasons because we have. So we have a lot of leveling to do in terms of the various memories. There's a lot of leveling that we need to do, and I need at minimum 5 memories, often more. So we're looking at 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 in this crop, and then keeping in mind that some of these will need to be level 6 as well. And then from there, I'm going to be getting 3 disciplines of the hammer on top of the disciplines of the scar from the wound wounds. And then I guess the bit of good news is that the remaining 3 will just be one level up for the rest of these, so not quite as intense. But after that, there isn't as much for me to do. There would be the there'd be the history to write, and I can sort of do that whenever I feel like it. I'm getting a pretty clear idea. The thing that I'm actually probably most interested in doing that again, Rose would mean the City Unbuilt gets built at Ye's Behind the Wave. Sky would mean that the City Unbuilt is built at noon. Winter would say there is no second dawn, whereas Scale would sort of be the return of the low red sun, which is kind of consistent with my goal of peace, but I'm slightly leaning towards the City Unbuilt. But there is the question, do I want that to be in Ye's? Do I want that to be in noon? And why do I pick one over the other? I do actually have a slight preference at this point, but I think what I will be doing, the playthrough is going to sort of switch from specific goals in terms of crafting and more towards reading all of the books specifically with a mind to the history that I'm going to be writing. And that will mean that we'll spend a lot more it'll be just faster paced in terms of the seasons. With the possible exception, again, I might take an episode where I just sort of rearrange all the books that I do at sort of the normal speed, but I'd sort of just let the day run through. But yeah, I feel pretty good. So we're going to buy a new book from Oriflammes this season. We've got technically 4 more texts to work with after everything gets leveled up. And then from there, it's really just a question of how many further stories we want. So the ones that we've done, we've got the Lytirian, the Dappled Rose, the it's the Shroud, Labyrinth of Lions, and the Unfinished Lark. But in terms of further stories we haven't done yet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, maybe 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, I mean, double digits. So there's definitely no shortage of stuff that can potentially inspire our visitors. But obviously, if I'm going to be waiting each season for that, that's a bit much to expect for all of you. Anyways, I'm also happy that it doesn't look like my meddling with the file has spoiled anything. So I'm happy about that. But thank you everybody for watching. I will say I'm going to be... my expectation is that I'm going to be back to the regular Monday, Wednesday, and Friday streaming. Again, I was sick. Can't really help that. And I had the local game dev, local game dev meetup on Wednesday. But I don't think there's anything getting in the way of... Oh, you know what? Family Day might be something that happened. Let me just take a quick second here. Third Monday of February. So February 17th. Ooh, okay. Yeah, so in February, third week of February, I'll actually have 2 days in a row, so 17th and 19th off. Other than that, though, I may be late, but I am definitely expecting to be streaming. In any case, before I lose all of you, let's find someone who's online and see where we can go with this. Prosciutto Fist is streaming the Plucky Squire, so I don't know what that is, but I'll host her and we can all find out. Prosciutto Fist actually I found through Book of Hours. It's been a while since I've seen her play it, but I'll let her speak for herself. I actually kind of need to wrap things up, so sorry to run off so abruptly, but thank you again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.